The temple wasn't just ruined, it was violated. Leo's mop made a wet, sloshing sound as he pushed it through the congealed Titan's blood, a substance that shimmered with fading divine energy. Each sweep left a clean streak on the ancient marble floor, revealing intricate mosaics of forgotten gods now stained crimson. Around him, the air smelled of ozone and iron, with occasional sparks of residual magic dancing like fireflies in the temple's gloom. He ignored the distant cheers of departing heroes, their voices echoing through the shattered archways. They'd done their part, slain the Titan that had been summoned by some cult or another, and now they were off to celebrate with ale and songs. Leo watched them go, a group of 5 armored figures clanking down the temple steps, one of them waving a broken spear like a trophy. Their laughter faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of his mop and the occasional drip of blood from the ceiling. His mop glowed with a strange, hungry light. It always did when it touched divine residue. The wood handle felt warm in his hands, almost vibrating with anticipation. Leo had learned not to question it years ago when he'd first become a cosmic janitor. The job came with tools that had minds of their own, and his mop was particularly enthusiastic. After clearing the main pool of Titan's blood, a task that took nearly an hour of careful sweeping, Leo moved to the scattered debris. Shattered god weapons littered the temple floor. A sword with a blade that seemed to be made of crystallized moonlight lay in 3 pieces. A shield bearing the face of a screaming god had been cleaved in half. Arrows tipped with feathers from celestial birds were embedded in the walls. Each piece hummed with dangerous energy, curses and blessings mingling into toxic residue. Leo pulled a reinforced canvas bag from his belt, the material shimmering with containment runes. He picked up the largest piece of the moonsword first, his gloves protecting him from the sharp edges. As he dropped it into the bag, a notification appeared in his vision, translucent blue text that only he could see. Divine fragment acquired, moon shatter blade, broken. Estimated cleansing points, 75. He continued methodically, his movements practiced and efficient. Each piece went into the bag, the shield fragments, the arrows, even chips of armor that had been torn from the Titan's body. The notification stacked up in his peripheral vision, a growing list of potential points. He found a particularly nasty piece, a dagger made from a demon's tooth that still dripped black ichor. When he picked it up, the substance tried to crawl up his glove, but the containment field on his gear held firm. Demon-tainted artifact, Soul Drinker dagger, corrupted. Estimated cleansing points, 120. Warning, high curse concentration. Leo sighed. The dangerous ones always gave more points. He dropped it into the bag with extra care, watching as the black ichor sizzled against the containment field before being sealed away. When the last piece was collected, he stood in the center of the temple, the bag now bulging with divine garbage. He took a deep breath and focused. In his mind, he activated the Trash-to-Treasure Transmutation System. The interface appeared fully now, a complex display of gears and glowing symbols that floated before him. At its center was a counter labeled Cleansing Points that currently read 0. Process, Leo whispered. The bag in his hands began to glow, the runes on its surface blazing with golden light. He could feel the contents churning inside, the divine energies being stripped away, purified, converted. The process wasn't instantaneous, it took concentration. Leo closed his eyes, focusing on the system's workings. He could sense each artifact being broken down, their curses unraveling, their blessings being extracted and quantified. Minutes passed. The temple grew silent except for the hum of the transmutation. Then, all at once, the bag went still. The glow faded. Leo opened his eyes to see the notifications flooding his vision. Transmutation complete. Moonshatter blade fragments, 75 cleansing points. Celestial shield halves, 60 cleansing points. Starfeather arrows, x12 36 cleansing points. Titan armor shards, 45 cleansing points. Soul Drinker dagger, 120 cleansing points. Miscellaneous divine residue, 28 cleansing points. Total cleansing points, 364. Current level, 4. Points to next level, 364/100. Level up available. Leo's heart beat faster. He'd been at level 3 for weeks, cleaning up minor skirmishes and low-level divine accidents. This Titan battle was the biggest job he'd gotten in months. 364 points. That meant, multiple level-ups. Level up, he said aloud. The system responded immediately. Golden light enveloped him, warm and tingling. He felt energy coursing through his veins, his muscles strengthening, his senses sharpening. The notifications came in rapid succession. Level 4 Level 5. Cleansing points, 264/150. Level 5 Level 6. Cleansing points, 114/200. Level 6 Level 7. Cleansing points, -86/250. He'd reached level 7. 3 levels at once. Leo took a deep breath, feeling the changes. His vision seemed clearer, he could see the individual motes of dust floating in the temple's dim light. His hearing picked up the distant drip of water somewhere deep in the ruins. His body felt lighter, stronger. But level-ups came with a price. Or a lottery ticket, depending on how you looked at it. Mutation Roulette activated. Level 4 Mutation, processing. In his vision, a wheel appeared. It was divided into sections, each labeled with a body part: arm, leg, eye, hand, foot, spine, skin, organ. The wheel began to spin, colors blurring together. Leo held his breath. This was always the moment of truth. The mutations were unpredictable, sometimes helpful, sometimes disastrous, always strange. The wheel slowed. The pointer hovered between arm and leg, then clicked firmly onto arm. Mutation selected, right arm. Effect, rolling. Another wheel appeared, this one covered in symbols Leo didn't recognize, swirling vortexes, grasping hands, glowing orbs. It spun even faster than the first. Leo watched, his right arm already tingling in anticipation. Or dread. The second wheel stopped. The symbol it landed on was a perfect circle of absolute black, with smaller stars orbiting around it. Mutation effect, black hole vacuum assimilation. Your right arm has become a sentient black hole vacuum cleaner. It can consume matter and energy, purifying curses and converting them into harmless dust. Warning, usage drains health proportional to the target's corruption level. Before Leo could process what that meant, pain lanced through his right arm. He cried out, dropping to one knee. His glove shredded as his arm changed. The skin darkened to the color of deep space, speckled with tiny points of light like distant stars. His hand vanished, replaced by a swirling vortex that seemed to suck in the light around it. The vortex wasn't just black, it was an absence, a hole in reality. And it was hungry. Leo stared at his new arm. The vortex rotated slowly, pulling at the air. He could feel it, a consciousness that wasn't his own but was now part of him. The black hole arm had its own awareness, a simple, primal drive: consume, purify, clean. What in the nine hells? Leo whispered. His arm twitched. Not by his command. It turned toward a nearby altar, one he hadn't noticed before, tucked into a shadowed alcove. The altar was made of black stone carved with runes that pulsed with sickly green light. A curse altar, left behind by whatever cult had summoned the Titan. Probably meant to empower their ritual. The black hole arm lunged. Leo tried to pull back, but he wasn't in control. The vortex at the end of his arm expanded, and a force like gravity pulled the altar toward him. The cursed stone resisted at first, the green runes flaring brighter, but the pull was irresistible. The altar shattered into pieces that were sucked into the vortex. Inside his arm, Leo felt a churning sensation. The cursed energy of the altar fought against the purification process. He could sense the black hole working, breaking down the curse, unraveling its magical structure. After a moment, a fine gray dust poured from his arm, not from the vortex, but from pores that had opened in his dark skin. The dust settled on the floor, inert and harmless. Curse altar purified. Minor health drain, -5%. Leo felt a wave of fatigue. Not overwhelming, but noticeable, like he'd just run up a flight of stairs. So using the arm cost health. Good to know. He needed to test this properly. Leo looked around the temple. His eyes, which had mutated at level 2 into kaleidoscopic orbs that could see emotional stains, scanned the area. They showed him the residual emotions in the temple: the Titan's rage, a boiling red; the hero's triumph, a bright gold; and, there, A patch of fear stain near the entrance, left by a cultist who had fled before the battle. Fear stains often carried minor curses, echoes of terror that could haunt a place. Leo walked over to it. The stain was invisible to normal sight, but to his kaleidoscopic eyes, it appeared as a swirling purple mist clinging to the floor. He knelt and extended his black hole arm toward it. This time, he tried to control it. He focused on the arm, on the vortex. He imagined it activating, but gently. The vortex responded. It began to rotate faster, and the purple mist was pulled toward it. The fear stain resisted, trying to cling to the stone, but particle by particle, it was sucked into the black hole. Inside his arm, Leo felt the curse being processed. It was smaller than the altar's curse, simpler. The black hole broke it down easily. More gray dust poured from his arm. Fear stain purified. Minor health drain, -2%. Leo stood, examining his arm. The vortex had shrunk back to its original size, rotating lazily. He flexed his, well, he didn't have fingers anymore, but he could feel the muscles in his forearm still working. The black hole was part of him now. He could sense its hunger, its purpose. It wanted to clean. To consume corruption. It was, in a twisted way, the perfect tool for a cosmic janitor. He laughed, the sound echoing in the empty temple. A black hole arm. Of course. Because mopping up god blood wasn't weird enough. As he admired the swirling vortex, a tremor shook the temple. Not a small tremor, a deep, rumbling vibration that started in the floor and traveled up through Leo's boots into his bones. Dust rained from the ceiling. A crack appeared in one of the remaining pillars. Leo froze. The tremor passed, but then another came, stronger. And with it, a sound. Distant, deep, echoing up from somewhere far below the temple. A roar. Not an animal roar, something older, angrier, more profound. It vibrated in Leo's chest, making his teeth ache. The void dragon. Stirring in the dungeon's heart. His black hole arm twitched again, this time not toward any corruption, but downward, toward the source of the roar. As if it recognized the threat. Or the opportunity. Leo grabbed his mop with his left hand, his right arm, the black hole, held warily at his side. The temple, which had felt empty and safe moments before, now felt like a trap. The cheers of the departing heroes were long gone. He was alone. With a mutated arm that ate curses. And something ancient and angry was waking up because of it. Another roar echoed, closer this time. The floor shook again. Leo made a decision. He needed to move. Now. He slung the now empty canvas bag over his shoulder, gripped his mop tighter, and headed for the temple's rear exit, the one that led deeper into the ruins, away from the surface. Away from safety. Behind him, his black hole arm continued to rotate slowly, stars twinkling in its dark depths, hungry for whatever came next. The ground trembled beneath Leo's feet as he scrambled from the ruined temple, the ancient stones groaning in protest at the disturbance deep within the dungeon's heart. Distant roars echoed through the valley, not the triumphant cries of heroes, but the guttural awakening of something far older and infinitely more dangerous. His black hole arm pulsed with a low hum, the sentient vacuum cleaner seeming to vibrate in time with the tremors, as if recognizing a kindred anomaly in the world. Leo didn't look back. He focused on the path ahead, a narrow trail winding through petrified trees that had been fossilized by the Titans passing centuries ago. The air still smelled of ozone and divine blood, a metallic tang that clung to the back of his throat. His right arm, now a swirling vortex of darkness contained within a shimmering, semi-transparent membrane, hung at his side, heavier than it should have been. Every few steps, it would twitch independently, the black hole's event horizon rippling with what felt like curiosity. Stop thinking of it as an arm, Leo reminded himself, his breath coming in ragged gasps. It's a tool. A very hungry, very unpredictable tool. The thought was punctuated by a sudden lurch from the black hole arm. It extended toward a patch of ground where glowing, sapphire-colored gore had pooled between the roots of a petrified oak. The Titan's blood, or what passed for blood in beings of cosmic scale, still radiated faint warmth and a dangerous, unstable energy. Without Leo's conscious command, the black hole arm began to inhale. A low whirring sound filled the clearing as the vacuum cleaner activated. The sapphire gore lifted from the ground in shimmering strands, twisting through the air like liquid starlight before being sucked into the swirling darkness of Leo's arm. He felt a familiar drain, a slight pull at his vitality as the system processed the divine garbage. His health dropped by about 3%, a small price for what he was about to gain. Trash-to-Treasure Transmutation System activated. Divine garbage detected, Titan's residual hemolymph, grade B. Processing. Cleansing points generated, plus 127. Total cleansing points, 491. Leo's eyes widened. 491 points. That was enough for another level up. Maybe two, if he found more garbage along the way. But leveling meant the mutation roulette, and after the black hole arm, he wasn't sure he wanted to see what came next. His spine already projected gravitational fields, a mutation from his last level up that he'd barely begun to understand. Adding another random body alteration felt like stacking chaos upon chaos. He pushed forward, his mop, still glowing with that strange, insatiable hunger, slung over his shoulder. The forest grew denser, the petrified trees giving way to living ones twisted into impossible shapes by centuries of magical fallout. Vines pulsed with bioluminescent fungi, and the ground crunched underfoot with crystalline growths that sprouted from corrupted soil. This was the aftermath zone, the place where reality itself had been bruised by the Titan's battle, and nature had grown back wrong. Another patch of cosmic gore caught his eye, this one a smear of iridescent slime clinging to a moss-covered boulder. Leo hesitated for only a moment before extending his black hole arm again. The drain was smaller this time, maybe 2% of his health, and the system chimed with another notification. Cleansing points generated, plus 58. Total cleansing points, 549. Enough for a level up. Definitely enough. Leo could feel the points buzzing in his system, a tangible energy waiting to be spent. He considered holding off, waiting until he was somewhere safer, but the tremors were growing more frequent. The Void Dragon was waking, and whatever had alerted it to his presence wasn't going to stop just because he delayed his evolution. He was about to activate the level up when a voice cut through the forest's unnatural silence. Well. What do we have here? Leo froze. Three figures emerged from between the twisted trees, their armor gleaming with enchantments that made the very air around them shimmer. The leader was a woman with silver hair tied back in a practical braid, her plate armor etched with sun motifs. A paladin, by the look of her. To her left stood a man in dark leathers, twin daggers glowing with poison enchantments, a rogue. To her right, a younger man in blue robes clutched a staff topped with a crackling crystal, his eyes wide with what might have been excitement or avarice. A mage. Looks like a scavenger, the rogue said, his voice dripping with contempt. He had sharp features and eyes that never stopped moving, assessing threats and valuables with equal intensity. Picking through the Titan's leavings like a rat. The paladin held up a hand, silencing him. Her gaze was fixed on Leo's black hole arm, which had retracted slightly, the event horizon swirling more slowly, as if wary. That's no ordinary scavenger, she said. That arm, it's consuming residual energy. Some kind of artifact. Does it matter? The mage piped up, his voice higher than Leo expected. If he found something in the temple, it belongs to us by right of conquest. We're the ones who drove the Titan off, aren't we? Leo kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced. Arrogant heroes. Exactly the kind described in the system's briefings. They saw cleanup crews as beneath them, useful only for hauling away the mess they left behind. And if those crews happened to find something valuable in the garbage, well, finders keepers didn't apply when you had a sword and a superiority complex. Hand over whatever you took from the temple, the paladin commanded, her voice leaving no room for argument. We know the Titan dropped fragments of its core when it fled. If you found one, it's too dangerous for a janitor to handle. The word was delivered like an insult. Leo felt a flicker of anger, but he stamped it down. Anger wouldn't help here. What he needed was a way out, and with 3 armed heroes blocking his path, options were limited. I didn't take anything, Leo said, keeping his voice level. I was just cleaning up. It's my job. The rogue snorted. Cleaning up? With that thing? He pointed a dagger at the black hole arm. That's no mop, friend. That's a relic. And we'll be taking it. Leo's grip tightened on his actual mop. The glow from its head intensified, casting shifting patterns of light across the forest floor. He could feel the gravitational fields from his spine itching to activate, a low thrum of potential energy waiting to be unleashed. But using it would drain him, and he was already down about 10% health from the vacuuming. He needed to conserve what he had. The mage raised his staff. Enough talking. If he won't hand it over, we'll take it. The crystal at the staff's tip flared, and a sphere of condensed fire bloomed into existence, hovering for a heartbeat before shooting toward Leo. Time seemed to slow. Leo could see the individual tongues of flame, the way they warped the air around them, the mage's triumphant grin behind the attack. Instinct took over. Leo didn't think, he reacted. His black hole arm snapped up, the event horizon expanding to meet the fireball. There was no sound, only a sudden, violent tug as the vacuum cleaner engaged at maximum capacity. The fireball distorted, stretched into a stream of orange light, and vanished into the darkness of Leo's arm. The drain was immediate and brutal. Leo gasped as his health plummeted, 15% gone in an instant. The black hole arm shuddered, the membrane containing it flickering with strain. But it held. The fireball was gone, consumed and purified into nothingness. The heroes stared, their confidence faltering for the first time. What in the seven hells? The rogue muttered. Leo didn't wait for them to recover. He had 549 cleansing points, and he needed every advantage he could get. With a mental command, he activated the level up. Level up triggered. Current level, 7-8. Cleansing points consumed, 500. Remaining cleansing points, 49. Mutation Roulette spinning. A wheel only Leo could see appeared in his vision, spinning through a kaleidoscope of body parts and possible mutations. Heart, temporal arrhythmia. Liver, alchemical transmutation. Skin, reactive camouflage. The wheel slowed, passed over his legs, his left arm, his internal organs, and landed on his eyes. Mutation selected, ocular lenses. Effect, kaleidoscopic vision capable of perceiving emotional residues and metaphysical stains. Pain lanced through Leo's skull, sharp and sudden. He staggered, clutching his head as his vision exploded into color. When he blinked, the world had changed. The forest was no longer just trees and moss and twisted vines. Now, it was overlaid with shimmering patterns of light and shadow, each one telling a story. The ground where the Titan had bled glowed with fading rage and ancient pain. The trees bore emotional stains of fear, centuries-old terror imprinted into their very fibers. And the heroes. Leo looked at them, and he saw. The paladin was wrapped in a cocoon of rigid duty and simmering frustration, the emotional stain of someone forced to lead when she'd rather follow. Beneath that, a thread of genuine fear, not of him, but of failure. Of returning empty-handed to whatever order she served. The rogue was a knot of greed and paranoia, his emotional residue so thick it almost obscured his physical form. Every glance at Leo's black hole arm left a trail of avaricious light in the air, lingering like smoke. He wanted the artifact not for power, but for the wealth it could bring. And beneath that, a deep-seated fear of being overlooked, of never being enough. The mage was the simplest, a bright, almost childish excitement mixed with a desperate need to prove himself. His emotional stain was ambition, pure and uncomplicated, but it was edged with the fear of inadequacy. He'd thrown the fireball not to kill, but to show off, and now that it had failed, that fear was growing. Leo understood all of this in an instant, the knowledge flooding his mind without conscious thought. The kaleidoscopic lenses didn't just show him emotions, they interpreted them, laid them bare like an open book. His eyes, the mage shouted, pointing. They're changing. Indeed, Leo's irises now swirled with fractured colors, shifting patterns that mirrored the emotional stains around him. To the heroes, it must have looked like some kind of magical transformation, and it only made them more determined. Take him down, the paladin ordered, drawing her sword. It ignited with holy fire, casting long shadows through the stained forest. The rogue vanished into the shadows, reappearing behind Leo in a blur of motion. Twin daggers flashed toward his back. But Leo saw it coming, not with his normal vision, but with the kaleidoscopic lenses. The rogue's emotional stain left a trail in the air, a path of greedy intent that glowed like a neon sign. Leo sidestepped at the last moment, the daggers slicing through empty air. The rogue stumbled, off balance. How did he? He's reading us, the paladin realized, her voice tight. Some kind of perception magic. Mage, disrupt it. The mage began chanting, his staff glowing with anti-magic energies. Leo knew he couldn't let that spell complete. His black hole arm was still recovering from the fireball, and his health was too low to risk another direct confrontation. He needed to escape. He focused on the gravitational fields projected by his spine. With a thought, he intensified them in a narrow cone ahead of him. The air rippled, and a path through the trees suddenly became clear as gravity bent light and matter alike. Leo didn't run, he let the field pull him forward, sliding across the forest floor with unnatural speed. He's getting away, the rogue snarled. After him, the paladin commanded. Leo pushed the gravitational field to its limits, the strain making his head pound. Behind him, he could hear the heroes giving chase, their footsteps crashing through the undergrowth. The mage's anti-magic spell fizzled out as Leo moved out of range, but he knew they wouldn't give up. Not when they thought he had something valuable. As he fled, his kaleidoscopic lenses swept over the forest, searching for anything that might help. And then he saw it, a patch of ground that didn't just have emotional stains, but something deeper. A metaphysical wound in reality itself, glowing with cursed energy. It was a hidden entrance, half concealed by roots and glowing fungi. To normal eyes, it would have looked like just another part of the corrupted forest. But to Leo's mutated vision, it pulsed with a sickly, greenish light, radiating greed and despair and ancient malice. Untapped garbage. Divine refuse left behind by some long-forgotten conflict, waiting to be cleaned. And it was his way out. Leo altered his course, the gravitational field carrying him toward the hidden entrance. The heroes were close now, he could hear the paladin's armor clanking, the mage's frantic chanting as he prepared another spell. They'd seen him change direction, and they were closing in. He reached the entrance just as a bolt of lightning seared past his shoulder, close enough to make the hairs on his neck stand on end. The mage's work, and more accurate than the fireball. Leo didn't look back. He dove into the hidden entrance, the cursed energy washing over him like a wave of ice water. For a moment, there was only darkness and the sound of his own breathing. Then his kaleidoscopic lenses adjusted, and he saw the truth of where he'd landed. He was in a dungeon. Not the one with the void dragon, but another, older one. The walls were carved with runes that bled emotional residue, centuries of trapped fear and desperation. The air was thick with the metaphysical equivalent of mold and decay. And everywhere he looked, there was garbage. Broken artifacts, cursed residues, the discarded remains of forgotten battles. The Trash-to-Treasure Transmutation System chimed in his mind, a constant stream of notifications as it detected one divine garbage source after another. But Leo barely registered them. His attention was fixed on the entrance behind him, where the three heroes had skidded to a halt, their faces illuminated by the dungeon's eerie glow. They stared at the cursed entrance, at the runes that promised death to the unwary, and for a moment, Leo thought they might actually follow him in. But the paladin held up a hand, her expression grim. "It's a death trap," she said. "Cursed to the foundation. He's as good as dead in there." The rogue looked like he wanted to argue, but one glance at the swirling, malevolent energy leaking from the entrance changed his mind. "Fine. But if he comes out, we'll be waiting," the paladin finished. She gave the entrance one last, long look, then turned away. "Set up a perimeter. If he survives, we'll be here." Their footsteps faded, leaving Leo alone in the cursed dungeon. His black hole arm hummed softly, already reaching for the nearest piece of divine garbage, a shattered shield leaking holy energy. His kaleidoscopic lenses showed him the emotional stains layered on every surface, a history of pain and conflict written in light. And deeper in the dungeon, something stirred. Something old, and hungry, and very much aware that it had a visitor. The dungeon entrance sealed behind Leo with a groan of ancient stone, plunging him into darkness that smelled of ozone and decay. His kaleidoscopic lenses adjusted instantly, painting the world in swirling hues of emotion stain. The walls weren't just stone, they wept with centuries of magical residue, glowing with the sickly green of corrupted enchantments and the deep purple of lingering curses. Each step echoed through corridors that curved like the intestines of some long-dead god. Leo's black hole arm twitched with its own sentient hunger, the swirling void at its end pulsing softly. He could feel its awareness, not thoughts exactly, but urges. It wanted to consume the cursed matter clinging to every surface. His gravity spine tingled along his back, the subtle fields it projected making the air around him feel denser, heavier. First things first, Leo thought, raising his mop. The ordinary-looking tool glowed with that strange hunger he'd noticed before, its fibers drinking in the ambient magical pollution. He swept it along a section of wall where a particularly thick residue of cursed energy oozed like black tar. The mop absorbed it with a soft slurping sound, and his system chimed in his mind. Divine garbage collected, cursed wall residue. Cleansing points, plus 12. Total, 61. Not enough for a level up yet. He needed more. Leo moved deeper, his lenses revealing the dungeon's history in emotional stains. Here, a splash of terror red where a mage had died screaming. There, a smear of greed yellow where looters had fought over artifacts. The air grew colder as he descended a crumbling staircase, his boots crunching on shattered crystals that had once powered defensive wards. A side chamber opened before him, filled with the glittering remains of what might have been an alchemy lab. Broken vials leaked iridescent fluids that pooled on the floor, their magical properties long since decayed into toxic waste. Shattered enchantment stones littered the ground, their runes cracked and dark. Perfect, Leo thought. He extended his black hole arm, the void at its end expanding slightly. With a thought, he activated its vacuum function. The air shimmered as broken enchantment stones lifted from the ground, swirling toward the black hole. They disappeared into the void with soft pops, purified of their corrupted magic. His system chimed repeatedly. Divine garbage collected, shattered enchantment stones x8. Cleansing points, plus 64. Total, 125. Divine garbage collected, decayed alchemical residue. Cleansing points, plus 23. Total, 148. Still not enough. He needed at least 500 for the next level up from level 8 to 9. But the drain on his health was minimal this time, just 3% for the sustained vacuum. His black hole arm seemed to be learning efficiency. As he moved to another pile of debris, his lenses caught movement in the emotional stains. A flicker of aggression orange, fresh and sharp. The heroes were still outside, but their emotions bled through the dungeon's walls. Ilara's righteous fury. Kale's greedy anticipation. Finn's ambitious impatience. They were waiting, probably setting up some trap or perimeter. Better work fast, Leo muttered. He found a corridor lined with what had once been defensive glyphs. Now they were just cursed scribbles leaking malignant energy. His mop made quick work of them, the strange hunger in its fibers seeming to intensify with each swipe. Points ticked upward, plus 18, plus 22, plus 15. His total climbed to 203. Then he saw it, a larger chamber ahead, its entrance arched with stone carved into weeping faces. Inside, the air practically vibrated with accumulated magical pollution. Broken artifacts lay scattered, a sword with its blade snapped in two, still glowing with faint holy light turned sickly, a shield cracked down the middle, oozing protective magic gone rancid, fragments of armor that had once belonged to someone important. This was a treasure trove of divine garbage. Leo stepped inside, his gravity spine automatically projecting a subtle field that made the floating dust particles orbit him in slow circles. He began systematically cleaning, starting with the sword. His black hole arm consumed the broken weapon, and the system chimed with a satisfying note. Divine garbage collected, broken holy sword. Cleansing points, plus 87. Total, 290. The shield followed, adding another 74 points. Fragments of armor added 36 more. He was at 400 now, so close. A pile of discarded spell scrolls, their ink faded to cursed patterns, yielded another 45 when his mop absorbed their residue. 445. Just a little more. He spotted a cracked crystal orb in a corner, pulsing with trapped magical energy that had turned corrosive. As he reached for it with his black hole arm, his foot brushed against a barely visible rune on the floor. The dungeon reacted instantly. Stone ground against stone as hidden mechanisms activated. The weeping faces on the archway glowed with sudden malevolent light. From the walls, spectral forms materialized, translucent guardians clad in ethereal armor, their faces featureless voids. They carried ghostly weapons that hummed with anti-magic frequencies. Traps, Leo cursed mentally. Of course there'd be traps. 3 spectral guardians advanced, their movements silent and unnaturally smooth. The lead one swung a ghostly axe that passed through the air without sound but left a trail of disrupted magic in its wake. Leo dodged, his gravity spine flaring. The gravitational field intensified around him, slowing the specter's next swing just enough for him to roll aside. His black hole arm twitched eagerly. Could it consume spectral beings? He aimed it at the nearest guardian and activated the vacuum. The specter's form distorted, stretching toward the void, but it resisted, its anti-magic nature fighting the consumption. Leo felt the health drain spike, 8% this time, and the specter was only partially absorbed before reforming. Not efficient, he realized. The guardians coordinated their attacks. One fainted high while another swept low with a spectral spear. Leo's kaleidoscopic lenses showed their emotional stains, not true emotions, but programmed aggression patterns in cold blue. He could see their attack vectors a split second before they moved. He used his mop defensively, swinging it in wide arcs. To his surprise, when the mop passed through a specter, it absorbed some of its ethereal substance. The guardian flickered, weakened. The system chimed. Divine garbage collected, spectral guardian essence. Cleansing points, plus 31. Total, 476. Close. So close to 500. Leo fought defensively, letting the guardians come to him. His mop absorbed essence from each attack they made, his points climbing, plus 28, plus 33, plus 29. The numbers flashed in his mind, 476, 504, 537, 566. He had enough. More than enough. As the spectral guardians regrouped for another assault, Leo triggered the level up mentally. The familiar surge of energy coursed through him, and the mutation roulette activated in his consciousness. A wheel spun through possibilities, its segments blurring too fast to read. It slowed, stopped. Mutation roulette result, left leg. Mutation, spring-like appendage. Effect, enhanced leaping capability at cost of significant stamina per use. Leo's left leg shuddered, bones and muscles rearranging themselves in a painful but brief transformation. When it finished, his leg looked mostly normal but felt different, tense, coiled, like a compressed spring waiting to release. Testing it lightly, he bounced on the balls of his feet and nearly hit the ceiling, catching himself at the last moment with a burst from his gravity spine. The spectral guardians lunged. Leo didn't fight them. Instead, he focused on his new mutation. With a thought, he activated the spring leg, putting all his weight into a leap. The world blurred as he shot upward, clearing the guardians entirely and landing on a stone ledge 20 feet above the chamber floor. The cost was immediate, a sharp drain of stamina that left him breathing heavily. About 30% gone in one jump. But he was out of their reach. The guardians circled below, their featureless faces tilted upward. They couldn't fly or leap that high. Leo took the moment to recover, watching as his stamina slowly began to regenerate. His points now stood at 566, enough for another level up later, but he'd saved them. The mutation roulette was too unpredictable to trigger recklessly. From his perch, he spotted what he'd missed before, a hidden alcove behind a collapsed pillar. Inside glimmered a cache of broken artifacts, more divine garbage. Using careful, smaller leaps with his spring leg, each costing about 5% stamina, he navigated across stone outcroppings to reach it. The cache contained the real treasure, a shattered staff that had once channeled elemental forces, now just leaking corrupted magic, a crown bent out of shape, its gems dark with curse residue, fragments of a golem core that hummed with unstable energy. His black hole arm made quick work of them, the vacuum function purifying each item with soft pops. Divine garbage collected, broken elemental staff. Cleansing points, plus 112. Total, 678. Divine garbage collected, cursed royal crown. Cleansing points, plus 94. Total, 772. Divine garbage collected, golem core fragments x3. Cleansing points, plus 156. Total, 928. Nearly 1,000 points. Enough for almost 2 level-ups. But Leo hesitated. The last mutation had given him a useful but stamina-draining ability. What if the next one did something less helpful? What if it mutated his other leg into something that made walking impossible? Or his head into, he didn't want to think about it. He'd save the points for now. Use them when absolutely necessary. Below, the spectral guardians had begun to fade, their summoning magic expended. They dissolved into motes of light that his mop eagerly absorbed as he descended with controlled leaps, plus 15% stamina total for the descent. More points, plus 42. Total, 970. Leo found a relatively clean corner and began organizing his loot, not the divine garbage he'd consumed, but the physical treasures he'd spotted along the way. A pouch of tarnished but intact coins from some forgotten kingdom. A few unbroken crystals that might still hold residual magic. A journal with pages that resisted decay, filled with cryptic notes about the dungeon's original purpose. He was stuffing these into his bag when the dungeon trembled. Not the subtle tremors from before. This was violent, a shudder that cracked the stone beneath his feet. Dust rained from the ceiling. His kaleidoscopic lenses flared with sudden, overwhelming emotion stain, a wave of malevolent energy so potent it painted the air blood crimson. The chamber's far wall, which he'd assumed was solid stone, began to glow with internal light. Cracks spread like spiderwebs, and through them pulsed a deep, rhythmic thrumming. The dungeon core. It had been dormant, but something had awakened it. Leo's black hole arm reacted before he did, the sentient void at its end contracting and expanding rapidly, sensing the immense cursed energy radiating from the core. His gravity spine tingled with warning, projecting fields that made the falling dust spiral in unnatural patterns. Then the entrance behind him exploded inward. Stone shattered as magical force blasted apart the sealed doorway. Through the dust and debris strode the three arrogant heroes, weapons drawn and spells crackling at their fingertips. Ilara led, her paladin armor gleaming even in the dungeon's gloom, her face set in righteous fury. "There you are, Janitor. Did you really think you could hide from us?" Kale slipped from the shadows beside her, twin daggers glinting. "Just hand over the artifacts. All of them. Maybe we let you crawl out of here." Finn followed, fire dancing between his fingers, his young face twisted with ambition. "The dungeon core is awakening. You've triggered something. Give us what you found, and perhaps we'll protect you from whatever comes next." Leo backed away, his bag of loot clutched in his normal hand, his black hole arm raised defensively. But his attention wasn't on the heroes. It was on the pulsing light from the far wall, growing brighter with each thrum. The cracks widened, and through them, he could see it, the dungeon core, a massive crystal heart suspended in a chamber beyond, beating with malevolent energy that made the air taste of ozone and despair. It was awakening fully now, and whatever slept within it was turning its attention toward the intruders in its domain. The dungeon core pulsed with sickly violet light, casting jagged shadows across the chamber as Ilara's sword pointed at Leo's chest. "Thief," she spat, her armor gleaming with righteous fury. "You've stolen artifacts that belong to the Heroes Guild." Kale melted from the shadows behind a broken pillar, twin daggers glinting, while Finn's hands crackled with orange flame, illuminating his youthful, determined face. Leo backed toward the core, his mop glowing with that strange hunger he still didn't understand. "I'm just cleaning," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline. "This is cursed residue. It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" Finn laughed, the sound echoing off the ancient stone. "We just fought through spectral guardians. We know danger. What we don't know is why a janitor thinks he can loot a dungeon before proper heroes." The core chose that moment to lash out. A tendril of violet energy shot from its cracked surface, not at anyone in particular but writhing like a dying serpent. It struck the ceiling, and chunks of stone rained down. Leo ducked, his kaleidoscopic lenses activating without conscious thought. The world fractured into prismatic shards. He saw Ilara's fear of failure as a pulsing red stain around her heart, Kale's greed as a sickly green aura clinging to his hands, Finn's ambition as a golden but brittle halo. And the core was a knot of black despair and ancient malice, weeping curses like pus from a wound. "Now!" Ilara shouted. Kale blurred into motion. Leo's enhanced perception gave him a half-second warning. The rogue was aiming for his spring-like left leg, probably to cripple his mobility. Leo pushed off with that very leg, the coiled energy releasing with a twang that vibrated through his bones. He sailed over Kale's head, but the stamina drain hit him immediately, a sharp, breath-stealing exhaustion that felt like someone had punched him in the diaphragm. He landed awkwardly, his black hole arm instinctively coming up as Finn's fireball roared toward him. The flames vanished into the swirling darkness of his palm with a sound like tearing fabric. Leo gritted his teeth as the familiar health drain washed over him, another 15% gone, leaving him feeling lightheaded. His system interface flickered in his vision, cleansing points, 970/1000 for next level. So close. He's using dark magic. Elara charged, her sword trailing holy light that clashed violently with the dungeon's cursed atmosphere. Leo scrambled backward, his eyes fixed on the core. Where Kale's shadow had passed, a fresh smear of cursed residue gleamed on the stone, left by the rogue's enchanted boots, probably. Without thinking, Leo swept his mop across it. The mop head glowed brighter, and the residue dissolved into shimmering motes. Cleansing points, 985/1000. Another tendril from the core lashed out, this time toward Finn. The young mage deflected it with a hasty shield spell, but the backlash sent him stumbling into a pile of broken artifacts. Leo saw his chance. While Finn was distracted, he darted forward, his black hole arm extended toward a patch of weeping black ooze on the core's base. The arm seemed to shudder with anticipation, the sentient darkness within it humming. No. Elara was too far away, but Kale wasn't. The rogue threw a dagger. It wasn't aimed at Leo, it was aimed at the ooze, trying to disrupt the cleaning. The blade struck true, splattering the cursed substance. But Leo's black hole arm was already engaged. It sucked in both the ooze and the dagger, purifying them with a sound like grinding bones. Cleansing points, 1000/1000. Level up. The notification blazed in Leo's mind. He had no time to celebrate. The mutation roulette spun, a phantom will only he could see, its sections blurring with possibilities. It stopped on, spine. A sensation like molten iron poured down his back. Leo gasped, collapsing to one knee. It wasn't pain, exactly, it was a profound, unsettling rearrangement. He felt his vertebrae shifting, aligning into something new, each bone humming with potential energy. His system interface updated, mutation, gravity spine, projects adjustable gravitational fields. Warning, high health cost for major manipulations. Elara saw him falter. He's vulnerable. She closed the distance, her sword raised for a downward strike that would cleave him in two. Leo didn't think. He just reacted. The new mutation in his spine flared to life, responding to his panic. He didn't understand how to control it, he just wanted her away. A visible distortion erupted from his back, a shimmering wave of compressed air that hit Elara like a mountain. Her charge reversed in an instant. She didn't just stop, she was flattened against the floor, her armor groaning under pressure that shouldn't exist. The gravitational field didn't stop with her. It expanded outward in a cone, slamming into the dungeon walls. The stone, ancient and already stressed by the core's curses, gave way. A section of wall 30 feet wide simply collapsed inward, not in a rain of debris but in a sudden, violent compression. It became a pancake of rubble, dust exploding in a thick cloud. The sound was deafening, a deep, basso crunch that vibrated through Leo's teeth. And the cost hit him. It was like someone had reached into his chest and ripped out a piece of his life force. His vision tunneled, his knees buckled, and he vomited nothing but bile. The system notification was brutal, health, minus 65% from gravitational field activation. Current health, 20%. For a moment, there was silence except for the settling dust. Then a groan. Elara was struggling to rise, her armor dented, blood trickling from her nose. She was alive, but barely mobile. Kale had been thrown clear, now clutching a broken arm behind a mostly intact pillar. Finn was buried to his waist in rubble, unconscious. Leo forced himself to breathe. The dust was thick, choking. His kaleidoscopic lenses cut through it, showing him the emotional stains. Elara's fear had spiked into terror, Kale's greed was now tinged with survival panic. And the core's malice was churning, agitated by the sudden gravitational shock. He had to move. He had to clean. The thought was automatic, drilled into him by years of janitorial work. Chaos meant mess, and mess meant points. Staggering, Leo approached the collapsed wall. His black hole arm trembled, but it activated. He began vacuuming up the rubble, not the big stones, but the powdered stone, the fragments of ancient mortar, the lingering curses that had been sealed in the walls. Each siphon brought a trickle of points. Cleansing points, 1020. 1025, 1035. It was slow, agonizing work with his health so low, each movement a fresh ache. He was so focused on the cleanup that he almost missed the new tremor. It started as a faint vibration in the floor, different from the collapse. Deeper. More rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. Then the roar came. It wasn't a sound heard with ears alone. It vibrated up from the foundations, through the stone, into Leo's bones. It was ancient, filled with rage and a loneliness so profound it felt like a physical weight. The very air grew colder, and the dungeon's cursed light flickered as if in fear. Deep below, in chambers untouched for millennia, something enormous shifted. Stone grated against scale. The tremor intensified, becoming a proper quake. Dust rained from the ceiling. A crack split the floor near the core, glowing with eerie blue light. The void dragon was awake. And it was coming. Leo stumbled backward, the dungeon's stone floor crumbling beneath his boots as the void dragon's roar echoed through the caverns. His health pulsed at a dangerous 20%, each heartbeat sending sharp reminders through his gravity-warped spine. The mop in his left hand, the one that had been his constant companion through countless cleanups, began to emit a faint, unsettling glow. It wasn't the warm light of enchantment, but something colder, hungrier, as if sensing the cosmic energies swirling around them. He retreated deeper into the dungeon's winding passages, his kaleidoscopic lenses automatically activating. The world fractured into prismatic shards of color and emotion. Where ordinary eyes would see only darkness and stone, Leo perceived the lingering stains of ancient battles, patches of violet resentment clinging to the walls, streaks of crimson fury burned into the floor, and everywhere, the deep indigo of loneliness so profound it felt like drowning. The void dragon's presence grew with every step. It wasn't just physical, the air itself thickened, becoming heavy with void-tainted particles that swirled like cosmic dust. Leo's black hole arm twitched, its sentient hunger responding to the debris. He raised it, and the vacuum cleaner at its end whirred to life, sucking in the void-tainted particles. His system chimed quietly in his mind, plus 15 cleansing points. Plus 12 cleansing points. The numbers ticked upward, reaching 1,027 total as he moved. The passages opened into a vast chamber that defied mortal architecture. This wasn't a room built by hands, it was a cavity carved by cosmic forces, its walls shimmering with embedded void crystals that pulsed with dark light. In the center, coiled around a mound of broken treasures and ancient artifacts, lay the void dragon. Leo's breath caught. The creature was enormous, scales the color of deepest space reflecting no light, only absorbing it. Its wings were tattered membranes stretched over bones that seemed to phase in and out of reality. But through his kaleidoscopic lenses, Leo saw more than physical form. Emotional stains radiated from the dragon in waves, layers upon layers of ancient rage, yellow and violent like solar flares, wrapped around a core of loneliness so blue it hurt to look at. Centuries of isolation, of being forgotten by the cosmos it once ruled, had left marks deeper than any physical scar. His mop's glow intensified, the strange hunger becoming a palpable pull toward the dragon. Leo tightened his grip, forcing himself to focus. He needed points, and the lair was littered with divine garbage. Scattered across the floor were dragon scales the size of shields, each one shimmering with residual void energy. Broken artifacts, a sword hilt still crackling with failed enchantments, a shattered orb leaking temporal energies, lay among piles of gold and gems that had lost their luster to the void's corruption. Carefully, keeping to the shadows along the chamber's edge, Leo began his work. His black hole arm extended, vacuuming up void-tainted debris. Each scale yielded 20 to 30 points, the broken artifacts 50 or more. His total climbed, 1,097. 1,152, 1,210. The system's notifications were a steady rhythm in his mind, a counterpoint to the dragon's slow, rumbling breaths. He was collecting a particularly large scale when the dragon stirred. One massive eye slid open, a pupilless expanse of void that seemed to swallow the light around it. Leo froze, his spring-like leg tensing for a jump that would drain precious stamina. The dragon didn't move toward him immediately. Instead, it exhaled. Void breath erupted from its maw, not fire or ice, but the absence of existence itself. The air where it passed ceased to be, leaving behind perfect nothingness that crept toward Leo like a tide of annihilation. Instinct took over. He leaped, his mutated leg propelling him 20 feet sideways in a burst that cost him 15% of his remaining stamina. The void breath passed where he'd been standing, erasing stone and artifacts alike from reality. In that moment of evasion, his cleansing points hit 1,500. The system chimed urgently. Level up available. Consume 1,000 points. Leo didn't hesitate. Yes. The familiar rush of energy flooded through him as 1,000 points vanished, leaving him at 500. His body shuddered, the mutation roulette spinning somewhere in the depths of his consciousness. This time, it settled on his skin. A wave of prickling sensation spread across his entire body. His skin tightened, then became semi-translucent for a moment, shimmering with a faint iridescent sheen before settling back to normal appearance. But he could feel the difference, a new layer of something between his flesh and the world, permeable yet resistant. The system notification appeared, mutation acquired, semi-permeable barrier. Absorbs 40% of magical damage. Drains 1% health per second while active. He had no time to test it. The void dragon, annoyed by his continued existence, unleashed another void breath. This one came faster, wider. Leo tried to dodge, but the breath clipped his right side. Pain should have been instantaneous, but instead, his skin shimmered where the void touched it. The semi-permeable barrier activated automatically, absorbing some of the magical annihilation. Still, searing agony shot through him as 60% of the damage got through. His health plummeted from 20% to 8%, and the barrier's drain began, 1% per second, ticking down relentlessly. He deactivated the barrier immediately, but the damage was done. At 7% health, with stamina depleted from the jump, Leo knew direct combat was suicide. Instead, he moved with desperate purpose, using his kaleidoscopic lenses to track the dragon's emotional patterns. The rage came in waves, predictable once he saw the rhythm. The loneliness created blind spots, moments when the dragon's attention turned inward, lost in memories of companionship long gone. During one such moment, Leo vacuumed up a cluster of broken artifacts near the dragon's tail, a shattered crown that had once belonged to some forgotten king, a staff snapped in two, a shield corroded by void energies. Plus 65 cleansing points. Plus 48. Plus 72. His total climbed back to 685. He looted as he moved, always retreating, always avoiding. Dragon scales went into his vacuum arms storage dimension. A handful of void crystals, carefully extracted from the wall with his mop's help, joined them. Each acquisition was a gamble, each moment spent gathering divine garbage a risk of drawing the dragon's full attention. The dragon grew impatient. It unfurled its wings, the tattered membranes casting shadows that moved independently of light. With a roar that shook the very foundations of reality, it launched itself not at Leo, but at the ceiling. Claws of solidified void tore through stone, and debris rained down, chunks of crystal, fragments of ancient murals, the petrified remains of creatures that had wandered here ages past. Leo's black hole arm whirred frantically, vacuuming the falling debris. Plus 10. Plus 8. Plus 15. Points accumulated, but so did danger. A boulder-sized chunk of void crystal nearly crushed him, only a last-minute roll, aided by a tiny 5% stamina jump, saved him. His health ticked down to 6%. His stamina hovered at 40%. His cleansing points reached 752. And through it all, his mop glowed brighter, its hunger becoming an almost audible whisper in his mind. It tugged toward the dragon, toward the very essence of the creature, as if recognizing something it desperately needed to clean. The dragon landed between Leo and the chamber's only exit, cutting off retreat. It lowered its head, void eyes fixing on him with finality. This wasn't random aggression anymore, this was deliberate, focused annihilation. The emotional stains Leo saw through his lenses shifted, the loneliness momentarily overshadowed by pure, undiluted rage at this intruder in its last sanctuary. Leo backed against the chamber wall, his tools arrayed before him, the glowing mop in his left hand, the black hole arm ready but low on power, his kaleidoscopic lenses showing him the dragon's emotional vulnerabilities that were no help in this moment, his spring-like leg with barely enough stamina for one more jump, his gravity projector spine that would drain what little health he had left, and his new skin barrier that would kill him slowly if activated. The void dragon inhaled, its chest expanding with void energy that darkened the already dim chamber. Leo's mop's glow intensified until it cast sharp shadows on the walls, the strange hunger becoming a palpable force that seemed to vibrate in time with his heartbeat. It pointed toward the dragon, not as a weapon, but as a tool craving purpose, as if it wanted to clean the ancient stains from this creature, to devour the void essence that had accumulated over millennia. The dragon's mouth opened, void energy coalescing into a sphere of absolute nothingness that would erase Leo from existence. And Leo's mop glowed with impossible brightness, as if answering a call only it could hear. The void dragon's maw yawned open, a swirling vortex of absolute darkness that seemed to drink the light from the chamber. Leo could feel the pull on his very soul, a cold, hungry suction that made his semi-permeable barrier skin flare with violet light as it absorbed what it could of the magical threat. His health ticked down another %, the drain a steady, ominous rhythm in his ears, 5% now, then 4%. The dragon's ancient eyes, pools of starless night, fixed on him with a rage so profound it felt like a physical weight. He tried to raise his black hole arm, but the gravitational projector in his spine protested, sending a sharp twinge through his back. His spring-like leg was coiled, ready to leap, but the stamina cost would drop him to near zero, leaving him a limp target. The mop in his left hand, the ordinary-looking tool that had been with him since his first cosmic cleanup, suddenly vibrated. Not the gentle hum of before, but a violent, hungry tremor that traveled up his arm and into his bones. Before Leo could process it, the mop lashed out on its own. It wasn't a swing or a thrust. The wooden handle remained in his grip, but the head, those frayed, glowing strands, elongated like reaching fingers, shooting toward the vortex of void energy pouring from the dragon's throat. They didn't deflect or block. They drank. The mop's fibers, now shimmering with an insatiable black and silver light, pierced the stream of annihilation energy and began absorbing it. The dragon's roar shifted from rage to surprise, a guttural rumble that shook loose more scales from the cavern ceiling. Leo watched, stunned, as the void energy, a substance that should have erased matter from existence, flowed into the mop like water into a sponge. The tool grew warm, then hot in his hand, the glow intensifying until it cast sharp shadows across the chamber. Through his kaleidoscopic lenses, he saw the emotional stains around the dragon flicker, the rage remained, but beneath it, a thread of confusion and loss. The mop was stealing something more than energy, it was taking a piece of the dragon's essence, the accumulated void of millennia. The absorption lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. The dragon recoiled, snapping its jaws shut with a sound like cracking mountains. The mop retracted, the fibers now pulsing with captured darkness. Leo's system interface flashed in his vision, notifications stacking rapidly. Divine garbage detected, void dragon essence residue, grade, cosmic. Trash-to-Treasure Transmutation activated. Cleansing points plus 2,500. Leo's breath caught. 2,500 points. More than he'd earned in the entire dungeon combined. His total cleansing points, which had dropped to 500 after his last level up, now soared to 3,000. The numbers danced before his eyes, a dizzying promise of power and risk. The dragon recovered faster than he expected. With a furious sweep of its tail, it shattered a stalagmite, sending crystalline shards flying. Leo ducked, his barrier skin flaring again as it absorbed the magical resonance in the debris. Health, 3%. The drain was relentless, but he couldn't deactivate it, not with the dragon's void aura still pressing in, a constant magical threat. He had to act. Now. Focusing inward, Leo triggered the level-up sequence. The system responded instantly, the familiar rush of energy flooding his body, but multiplied. With 3,000 points, he could level multiple times. He allocated them in rapid succession, each upgrade a wave of cleansing fire that scoured through his veins. Level up. Level 10 Level 11. Mutation Roulette triggered. Roulette spinning. Mutation selected, hair, transformed into prehensile tendrils. Leo felt a strange tingling across his scalp. His hair, short, practical strands, suddenly grew, thickening into rope-like tendrils that swayed with a mind of their own. They were dark, shimmering with the same void energy the mop had absorbed, and he could feel them as extensions of his will. Testing, he thought of grabbing a fallen dragon's scale nearby. 3 tendrils shot out, wrapping around the scale and lifting it with ease. They were strong, precise, and didn't drain stamina or health. A useful mutation, but random, the roulette's gift. He didn't stop. Another level. Level up. Level 11, level 12. Mutation roulette triggered. Roulette spinning. Mutation selected, hair, enhanced prehensile range and strength. The tendrils grew longer, more muscular, their tips developing subtle grippers like tiny hands. Leo grinned despite the danger. This could work. The dragon lunged, void breath gathering again, weaker this time, but still lethal. Leo didn't hesitate. He raised his black hole arm, the sentient vacuum cleaner whirring to life. Distracted, he muttered, though the arm seemed to understand on its own. He aimed not at the dragon, but at the cavern wall beside it, activating a full power suction. The effect was immediate. Stone, dust, and loose scales ripped from the wall, swirling into the arm's event horizon. The dragon, caught in the gravitational pull, staggered, its attack disrupted. But the cost was brutal. Leo's health, already at 3%, plummeted as the black hole arm fed on his vitality to sustain the pull. 2%. 1%. A warning flashed, critical levels. His vision blurred at the edges. Now. Using his new tendrils, Leo acted. While the dragon fought the suction, he sent 8 hair tendrils snaking across the chamber. They moved with silent speed, grabbing everything of value, dragon scales the size of shields, broken artifacts from earlier loot piles, even chunks of void-tainted crystal that glowed with residual power. He stuffed them into his makeshift bag, the tendrils working in coordinated frenzy. Each item registered in his system as divine garbage, adding small bursts of cleansing points, plus 10, plus 25, plus 50, but he barely noticed. Survival was the only goal. The dragon, enraged beyond reason, managed to tear free from the gravitational pull. It swung a claw at Leo, but he was already moving. His spring-like leg uncoiled, launching him sideways with a 30% stamina drain that left him gasping. He landed hard, rolling behind a rock formation as the claw shattered stone where he'd been. Health, 0.5%. The barrier skin's drain had stopped, he must have deactivated it unconsciously, but the near-zero health left him trembling, every breath a struggle. Peering out, he saw the dragon. It was weakened, its void aura dimmer, scales loose and rattling. The mob's theft of its essence had taken a toll. With a final, baleful glare, the creature turned and retreated, dragging its massive form deeper into the dungeon, where shadows swallowed it whole. The chamber fell silent, save for the drip of water and Leo's ragged breathing. He didn't wait. Gathering his loot with his tendrils, they retracted neatly, the item secured, he stumbled toward the exit. His spring-like leg protested, but he used it in small hops, conserving stamina. The path out was littered with debris from earlier collapses, but his kaleidoscopic lenses helped him navigate the emotional stains left by battle, fading fear, lingering rage. As he reached the dungeon's outer tunnel, sunlight filtering from a crack above, he leaned against the wall, exhausted. His health was slowly inching up, the system's natural regeneration, pitifully slow but better than nothing. He checked his status, level 12, 150 cleansing points left from the looting, hair tendrils retracted but ready, inventory bulging with dragon scales and broken treasures. Then the mop whispered. It was a sound not in his ears, but in his mind, a soft, insistent murmur. More, it seemed to say, the voice ancient and hungry. Cosmic trash, feast, Leo looked down at the tool. It no longer glowed with void energy, but with a deep, starry blackness, as if it had digested the dragon's essence and wanted another course. The strands twitched faintly, independent of his grip. He shuddered, pushing off the wall. The dungeon exit lay ahead, promise of open sky and temporary safety. But the mop's whisper lingered, a hint of greater hunger for the divine garbage of the cosmos, and whatever chaos that craving might bring. Leo stumbled into the cavern's alcove, his body screaming with exhaustion. The stone floor was cold and rough against his skin, but he collapsed onto it anyway, the semi-permeable barrier on his skin deactivating with a soft shimmer. The health drain stopped, leaving him at a precarious 0.5%, a thin thread of life he could almost feel fraying with each heartbeat. For a long time, he simply lay there, breathing in the stale dungeon air that still carried the faint ozone scent of void energy. His right arm, the sentient black hole vacuum cleaner, pulsed with a low hum, as if digesting the last remnants of dragon essence. The mop leaned against the wall nearby, its wooden handle now etched with faint, glowing runes that whispered in his mind. Not words exactly, but impressions: hunger, cosmic dust, divine residue. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself up against the wall. His hair tendrils, newly mutated and still unfamiliar, twitched restlessly, brushing against the stone like curious serpents. He willed them to still, and after a moment of resistance, they obeyed, coiling loosely around his shoulders. Control was coming, but in fits and starts. He opened his inventory, the Trash-to-Treasure Transmutation System projecting a translucent blue interface only he could see. The loot from the Void Dragon's lair glowed with various auras, 17 dragon scales the size of dinner plates, shimmering with void-black iridescence, 3 broken artifacts, a shattered crystal orb, a corroded bronze circlet, and a dagger with a blade that seemed to drink light, and several clumps of cursed residue that pulsed with sickly green energy. Each item had a cleansing point value hovering beside it. Analyze, he thought, and the system responded with detailed readouts. The dragon scales, 75 points each, high void resistance material. The broken artifacts, between 50 and 120 points, depending on their original divine potency. The cursed residues, 30 points each, but required careful handling to avoid contamination. Total potential, 2,315 cleansing points. Enough for 2 level-ups, maybe 3 if he was frugal. But level-ups meant mutation roulette. Leo's gaze drifted to his right arm, then to his spine where the gravity projector lay dormant. Each mutation had saved him, but at a cost: health, control, sanity. The black hole arm had nearly consumed him along with the dragon's essence. The gravity spine had flattened Alara and brought the dungeon down around them. The semi-permeable skin had drained him to near death. And now these hair tendrils, twitching with a mind of their own. He selected 1 dragon scale and 2 clumps of cursed residue. Convert. The items dissolved into motes of light that flowed into his system. Cleansing points increased by 135. He saved the rest, leaving them in inventory. No level up yet. Not until he was stronger, healthier. His health was recovering, but slowly. The system showed a regeneration rate of 0.1% per minute. At this pace, it would take hours to reach even 10%. He activated his kaleidoscopic lenses, the world shifting into a prismatic overlay. The dungeon walls around him were stained with emotional residues, not just the void dragon's rage and loneliness, but older layers. Heroes' triumph, monsters' fear, ancient curses' malice. They hung in the air like psychic cobwebs, faint but pervasive. More concerning were the trails leading out of the dungeon. His enhanced perception followed them through stone and earth, to the surface where they bled into the land. Villages. He could see them in his mind's eye, small settlements on the dungeon's outskirts, their emotional landscapes tainted by the dungeon's psychic leakage. Fear, nightmares, creeping despair. Not immediate threats, but slow poisons. Leo wasn't a hero. He'd never wanted to be. But those emotional stains, they were divine garbage of a sort. Cursed residues on a grand scale. And garbage meant cleansing points. His mop whispered agreement, its hunger echoing his own calculation. He spent the next hour practicing. First, the hair tendrils. He focused on making them pick up a dragon scale. 1 tendril uncoiled, slithering across the floor, its tip splitting into finer filaments that wrapped around the scale's edge. It lifted, wobbled, then steadied. Good. Range, about 10 feet. Strength, enough to lift maybe 20 pounds. He set it down, the tendril retracting with a satisfied ripple. Next, the gravity spine. He activated it at minimal power, feeling the familiar strain in his back. A faint gravitational field extended a few inches around him, making dust motes spiral downward. He increased the intensity slightly, and the field expanded to 3 feet. The health cost appeared, 0.5% per minute at this level. He deactivated it immediately. Too dangerous until his health recovered. The black hole arm was hardest. It had its own sentience, a deep, vacuumous hunger that resonated with the mop's whispers. Leo focused on directing it, imagining a small, controlled suction. The arm's palm irised open, a tiny singularity swirling within. A pebble skittered across the floor and vanished into it. No health drain this time, just a faint satisfaction from the arm itself. Progress. His semi-permeable skin he left alone. Activating it now would kill him in minutes. By the time he finished, his health had crept to 1.2%. Still dangerously low, but the immediate threat of collapse had passed. He ate some ration bars from his pack, the bland taste a stark contrast to the cosmic energies he'd been dealing with. The mop's whispers grew more insistent, pointing toward the surface, toward those emotional stains. Leo packed his loot carefully, the dragon scales clinking softly in his bag. He slung the mop over his shoulder, its sentient presence a constant, low-level buzz in his mind. The black hole arm settled into a dormant state, looking almost normal save for the faint starfield swirls under the skin. His hair tendrils coiled tightly, hidden under a hood he pulled up. He emerged from the dungeon into late afternoon light, squinting against the brightness. The landscape outside was rugged hills dotted with scrub pine, the dungeon entrance hidden in a rocky outcrop. His kaleidoscopic lenses still active, he could see the emotional stains clearly now, ribbons of psychic residue drifting like mist toward the southeast, where chimney smoke marked a village. He'd clean it up. Not to save anyone, but because it was garbage, and garbage was his profession. And the points would be useful. But carefully. No grand gestures. No attracting attention. Just a janitor doing his job. He was halfway down the hill when a figure appeared on the trail below, a man in travel-stained leathers, breathing heavily as he jogged upward. Not a hero, Leo assessed instantly. No gleaming armor, no arrogant posture. Just a messenger, by the look of him. The man spotted Leo and skidded to a halt, eyes widening at the sight of the hooded figure with the strange mop. Are you from the dungeon?" the messenger gasped, clutching a stitch in his side. Leo kept his voice neutral. "Passing through." The dungeon, it shook the whole region. Collapsed part of the mountain. The messenger swallowed, fear plain on his face. Words reached the Demon King's scouts. "They're coming. To investigate. Maybe to claim whatever power caused it." Leo felt a cold settle in his gut. The Demon King's forces. Not the king himself, but scouts. The same domain whose throne room he'd eventually have to deal with, according to the vague prophecies his system sometimes hinted at. How soon? Days, maybe less. They move fast through the shadow paths. The messenger backed away a step, as if realizing he was talking to someone who'd emerged from a collapsed dungeon unscathed. "I'm warning the villages. You should get clear." Then he was gone, scrambling back down the trail toward the southeast, toward the very villages Leo had planned to clean. Leo stood still for a long moment, the mop's whispers now tinged with something new, not just hunger, but anticipation. The emotional stains were one thing. Demon King scouts were another. More divine garbage, potentially. More points. More risks. His health glowed at 1.3% in his system interface. His mutations hummed, waiting. The dragon scales weighed heavy in his pack. And somewhere to the southeast, psychic residue poisoned dreams, while to the north, shadow paths began to stir. He adjusted the mop on his shoulder. The cleanup was about to get complicated. The morning air carried the scent of decay and fear as Leo approached the village of Oakhaven. Through his kaleidoscopic lenses, the settlement looked like a painting bleeding into reality, normal timber and stone structures overlaid with swirling patterns of emotional residue. Purple tendrils of lingering terror coiled around the village well. Sickly yellow stains of despair dripped from the thatched roofs. The entire western field glowed with an angry crimson curse, the dungeon's residual magic having seeped through the earth like poison. Leo kept to the tree line, his semi-permeable barrier skin shimmering faintly as it absorbed ambient magical contamination. The 1% health drain per second was manageable for now. His health had crawled up to 2.1% during the journey, but every second of active use felt like sandpaper rubbing against his soul. He deactivated it, the shimmer fading as he assessed the situation. 3 days. That's what Torin had said. 3 days until the Demon King scouts arrived to investigate the dungeon's destruction. Leo had used one of those days traveling here, another practicing control over his mutations in hidden clearings. His hair tendrils now responded with surprising precision. He'd spent hours using them to pluck individual leaves from branches without disturbing the twigs. His gravity spine remained unpredictable, the gravitational fields it projected sometimes flattening everything in a 5-meter radius when he merely intended to create a subtle barrier. But Oakhaven needed cleaning. The emotional stains weren't just aesthetic, they were affecting the villagers. Through his lenses, Leo watched a farmer approach the cursed field. The man's emotional aura dimmed as he neared the crimson glow, his shoulders slumping with unnatural fatigue. He turned away without tending his crops, moving with the lethargy of someone carrying invisible weights. Cleansing points. That's what Leo needed. More than the 635 he currently possessed. Enough to level up safely if confrontation became unavoidable, but not so much that he triggered the mutation roulette at an inopportune moment. The sentient mop strapped to his back whispered again, its voice like gravel shifting in a cosmic wind. Hunger, the crimson stain, so much wasted essence. Quiet, Leo muttered, though he knew the mop didn't listen. It had developed its own agenda since absorbing the void dragon's essence. He waited until midday, when most villagers retreated from the summer heat. The cursed field lay at the village's edge, separated from the main settlement by a low stone wall. Perfect for discreet work. Leo approached the field, his boots crunching on soil that had turned the color of dried blood. The crimson glow intensified through his lenses, revealing the curse's structure, a latticework of magical residue from some battle artifact that had shattered in the dungeon above. Probably a hero's broken sword or a mage's staff, its power leaching through bedrock and soil to poison this land. His right arm, the sentient black hole vacuum cleaner, stirred with anticipation. Leo extended it, the darkness at his fingertips swirling like liquid night. Carefully, he told himself. Just the curse. Not the soil. Not the air. The vacuum activated with a soft hum that seemed to swallow sound rather than produce it. Crimson tendrils of cursed energy peeled away from the earth, swirling into the black hole's event horizon. Cleansing points ticked upward in his system's interface, +5, +12, +8, +15. The field began to heal, the blood-red soil fading to healthy brown. Wheat stalks that had been withered and blackened straightened, their heads filling with grain. But the vacuum wanted more. It always did. Leo felt it pulling at the very nutrients in the soil, at the moisture in the air. He wrestled control back, his muscles straining as he directed the hunger toward only the magical contamination. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The health drain from earlier activations of his barrier skin had left him fragile, every exertion feeling like glass cracking under pressure. He cleaned a quarter of the field, enough to earn 287 cleansing points, bringing his total to 922, when movement caught his eye through his lenses. Not emotional stains this time, but actual figures approaching from the northeast. 3 of them. Their auras burned with disciplined malice, structured like military formations. Demon scouts. A day early. Leo dropped to a crouch behind the stone wall, deactivating his black hole arm. The vacuum's hunger protested with a psychic whine that echoed in his skull. Through a gap in the stones, he watched them approach. The lead scout wore leather armor reinforced with dark metal plates. A curved blade hung at his hip, its scabbard etched with infernal runes that glowed faintly even in daylight. His eyes, amber with vertical slits, scanned the village with methodical precision. The 2 following him carried crossbows loaded with bolts that shimmered with containment magic. Not killing weapons. Capture weapons. Report said the dungeon's collapse affected nearby settlements, the lead scout said, his voice carrying on the still air. Check for anomalies. The master wants anything unusual brought back for study. Leo's mind raced. He could flee, but his health was too low for sustained running. He could fight, but that would reveal exactly what the Demon King was looking for, an anomalous janitor. The third option, clean while hiding, using his mutations to misdirect. As the scouts moved toward the village center, Leo reactivated his barrier skin. The familiar drain began, 1% health per second. He had maybe 2 minutes before he dropped to dangerous levels again. With careful concentration, he activated his gravity spine. This was the hardest mutation to control. The gravitational fields wanted to flatten, to crush. Leo focused on subtlety, imagining not a wall but a slope, not a barrier but a suggestion. The air around the scouts shimmered faintly, the ground beneath their feet developing a barely perceptible tilt away from Leo's position. The lead scout paused, frowning. Do you feel that? Feel what? One of the crossbow wielders asked. The ground, it's sloping. The scout knelt, placing a hand on the earth. But it looks level. Perfect. They were noticing the effect but attributing it to natural phenomena. Leo maintained the gravitational field while returning to cleaning. His black hole arm consumed another patch of crimson curse, adding 154 points. Total, 1076. Dangerously close to level up territory. He moved along the wall, keeping low. The scouts had reached the village well now, examining the purple terror stains. One of them produced a crystal that glowed when near magical residue. Strong readings, the scout said. Recent cleansing too. Something's been through here. Leo froze. They were tracking the cleanup. Of course, demon scouts would have detection tools. He needed to finish quickly and retreat. Another section of field cleansed. Plus 203 points. Total, 1279. The wheat rustled in a sudden breeze, the sound covering Leo's movements as he reached the field's end. Only a small patch of crimson glow remained, clustered around what looked like a buried stone. He extended his black hole arm again. The vacuum hummed, pulling at the curse. And the stone erupted from the ground. It wasn't a stone. It was a fragment of a dungeon core, no larger than Leo's fist, but pulsing with concentrated curse energy. The vacuum latched onto it hungrily, consuming the fragment and the curse in one gulp. Cleansing points surged, plus 500. Total, 1779. Level up threshold reached. The mutation roulette triggered automatically. Leo's vision swam as the familiar will spun in his consciousness, landing on vocal cords. His throat constricted, then expanded, muscles rearranging themselves in a painful ripple that traveled up his neck. He choked back a cry, the sound coming out as a resonant hum that vibrated the stone wall beside him. New mutation, harmonic resonator. His voice could now disrupt weak magic through harmonic frequencies. The system notification warned, extended use strains throat tissue. Risk of permanent damage. The scouts heard the hum. There, the lead scout shouted, pointing directly at Leo's position. All three demons moved with trained synchronization, fanning out to flank the wall. The crossbow wielders took positions on either side while the lead scout advanced straight toward Leo. Health, 1.7% and dropping from barrier skin activation. Stamina, low from maintaining gravitational fields. Cleansing points, 1779, enough for another level up if needed, but that would mean another random mutation. Think. Harmless cleaner. That was the persona he needed. Leo stood up slowly, raising his hands in what he hoped was a non-threatening gesture. His hair tendrils instinctively coiled defensively, but he forced them to relax, letting them hang like ordinary hair. Just cleaning, he said, and his new mutation made the words resonate with unnatural clarity. The air around the scouts shimmered, his voice had disrupted their minor detection magics. The lead scout's crystal flickered and dimmed. The scout's amber eyes narrowed. What are you? Janitor. Cosmic sanitation. This field was cursed. Leo gestured with his right arm, keeping the black hole dormant. It looked like a normal arm, if slightly darker than the left. I was hired to clean it. By whom? The village elder. A lie, but plausible. Leo kept his voice even, though every word sent a twinge through his newly mutated throat. You can ask him. He's in the large house with the green door. The lead scout studied him. Through the kaleidoscopic lenses, Leo saw the demon's emotional aura, suspicion, dark green, duty, steel blue, and beneath it, fear, pale gray. Fear of failure. Fear of returning empty-handed to the demon king. Search him, the scout ordered. One of the crossbow wielders approached, weapon trained on Leo's chest. Leo forced himself to stand still as the demon patted him down, finding only his inventory of dragon scales, broken artifacts, and cursed residues. The scout's eyes widened at the dragon scales. Where did you get these? Found them. In the dungeon. Before it collapsed. Half-truths were easier to sell than outright lies. Part of the cleaning job. The lead scout took one of the scales, examining it. Void dragon. These are fresh. His gaze returned to Leo, suspicion deepening. A janitor who happens to be in a cursed village with void dragon scales, right when we're investigating the dungeon's destruction. Coincidence, Leo said, and his harmonic voice made the word vibrate in the air. The scout flinched, his hand going to his blade. Your voice. Sore throat. From the dust. Leo coughed, and the sound came out as a resonant pulse that made the demon's armor vibrate. He needed to leave. Now. He activated his gravity spine again, but carefully, not to flatten, but to create a gravitational gradient between himself and the scouts. The ground seemed to tilt, the scouts stumbling as their sense of balance was disrupted. Magic, one shouted. Leo turned and ran, his spring-like leg propelling him in a leap that cleared the stone wall. He landed awkwardly, the impact jarring his already low health down to 1.2%. Behind him, crossbow bolts whistled through the air. One grazed his shoulder, the containment magic on its tip sizzling against his barrier skin. The skin absorbed 40% of the magical damage, but the physical impact still tore fabric and flesh. He didn't look back. Another leap took him into the tree line, his hair tendrils instinctively grabbing branches to swing him forward in a bizarre, multi-limbed gait. The scouts gave chase, but Leo's mutations gave him an advantage in the forest. His kaleidoscopic lenses showed him the emotional residues left by animals, revealing game trails and hidden paths. After 10 minutes of frantic escape, he paused behind a massive oak, listening. No pursuit sounds. Either he'd lost them, or they'd given up. His inventory felt lighter. The searching scout had taken 3 dragon scales and one of the broken artifacts. A loss, but acceptable. What mattered was that they hadn't captured him, hadn't seen his black hole arm activate, hadn't witnessed the full extent of his mutations. Leo deactivated his barrier skin. The health drain stopped, leaving him at 0.9%. Dangerous. He needed to rest, to recover. But first, he found a hollow beneath the oak's roots and settled in, pulling out the one item the scouts had missed, a data crystal from their gear that had gotten tangled in his hair tendrils during the search. He focused his kaleidoscopic lenses on it. The crystal contained fragmented messages. Deployment orders. Investigation protocols. And one final transmission, sent just before the scouts entered Oakhaven. Confirmed anomalous energy signatures in the region. Not hero magic. Not demon magic. Something new. Retrieve source for analysis. The Master has taken personal interest. Lieutenant Valerius will oversee retrieval operations. Leo's blood ran cold. Personal interest from the Demon King. A lieutenant dispatched. Not just scouts anymore, a dedicated retrieval team. He stored the crystal with his other loot. The sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows through the forest. Somewhere to the north, demon forces were mobilizing. And they weren't just investigating dungeon destruction anymore. They were hunting a janitor. The cursed forest breathed with malevolent life. Gnarled trees twisted like arthritic fingers clawing at a sky perpetually stained with violet twilight. Leo moved through the undergrowth, his kaleidoscopic lenses painting the world in layers of emotion. The forest floor shimmered with ancient resentment, the air thick with lingering despair from battles long past. Each step crunched on brittle leaves that whispered of forgotten curses. His health hovered at a precarious 0.9%, a constant thrum of pain radiating from his spine where the gravity projector lay dormant. The semi-permeable barrier skin across his shoulders and back felt like wearing a suit of needles, each magical absorption costing him precious vitality. He kept it active at minimal levels, a calculated risk against the forest's ambient malevolence. Just need to reach the western clearing, Leo thought, his hair tendrils twitching with nervous energy. They'd grown more responsive since the dragon encounter, now extending up to 15 feet with the strength to lift small boulders. Currently, they sifted through the cursed flora, identifying patches of particularly potent emotional residue, anger from a shattered war banner, grief from a mass grave site, ambition from some long-dead commander's failed conquest. His right arm, the sentient black hole vacuum cleaner, remained quiescent but hungry. It whispered to him in sensations rather than words, a deep, gravitational pull toward concentrations of cosmic trash. The mop strapped to his back echoed this hunger, its wooden handle occasionally pulsing with faint light. He'd been tracking a particularly dense cluster of cursed energy for the past hour, following the emotional stains like breadcrumbs. According to his system's passive scans, this area contained remnants of a divine artifact shattered during the War of Falling Stars, exactly the kind of high-value garbage that could yield substantial cleansing points. That's when the ambush unfolded. One moment, the forest was merely oppressive. The next, shadows coalesced into solid form. Dark energy crackled like black lightning, and a figure emerged from between two weeping willows whose branches dripped with cursed sap. She stood tall and imperious, clad in armor that seemed to drink the violet light. It wasn't plate or chainmail but something organic and shifting, living shadow given metallic form. Her helm covered most of her face, leaving only eyes that glowed with cold amethyst fire. In her hand, she held a staff carved from what appeared to be petrified nightmare. "The anomalous janitor," she said, her voice like grinding stones. "I am Lieutenant Valerius, overseer of retrieval operations for His Majesty's domain. You will surrender your reality-warping artifacts." Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd expected scouts, maybe a patrol, not the lieutenant herself arriving so quickly. The data crystal from the scouts had mentioned her interest, but this felt personal. His kaleidoscopic lenses activated fully, peeling back layers of her emotional stains. What he saw made his breath catch. Ambition burned around her like a corona, not simple desire for promotion, but something deeper, hungrier. She wanted power, recognition, perhaps even a seat at the Demon King's table. But beneath that, woven through every thread of her being, was fear. Not fear of him, but of failure. Of disappointing her master. Of being cast aside like so much cosmic trash. "I don't have artifacts," Leo said, keeping his voice level. The harmonic resonator in his throat hummed faintly, ready to disrupt weak magic. "Just cleaning tools." "Your arm disagrees," Valeria said, her gaze fixed on his black hole limb. That distortion in reality, it consumed part of His Majesty's throne room. "Do you understand what you've done? The structural instability you've caused?" She took a step forward, and the forest responded. Vines thickened with dark energy, roots rose from the soil like grasping hands. The air grew colder, Leo's breath frosting before him. His mind raced. Direct confrontation would kill him, his health couldn't withstand a serious magical assault. But running might trigger pursuit through unknown territory. The cursed forest offered cover, but also unpredictable dangers. Then his black hole arm twitched. It had sensed something, a concentration of cursed energy nearby, richer than anything he'd encountered today. His eyes followed the pull to a moss-covered stone formation 50 feet to his left. Beneath the emotional stains of the forest, something glittered with divine residue. "I'm just here to clean," Leo said, beginning to back toward the stone formation. "This forest is full of dangerous residues. If left unchecked." "Silence," Valerius snapped. She raised her staff, and dark energy coalesced into jagged shards that hovered in the air around her. "Your mutations are anomalies that threaten the natural order. His Majesty wishes to study them. Come willingly, or I will extract them from your corpse." Leo reached the stone formation. His hair tendrils probed the moss, finding cold metal beneath. A relic, part of some broken divine instrument, judging by the emotional stains of creation and destruction that clung to it. Valerius's eyes narrowed. "What are you?" Leo's black hole arm activated. The vacuum cleaner roared to life, not as a weapon but as a tool. It focused on the cursed flora around the relic, poisonous mushrooms that wept black tears, thorny bushes whose every prickle carried centuries of malice, vines that whispered with stolen memories. They tore from the ground, swirling into the gravitational maw of his arm. His system chimed in his mind. Cursed flora converted, 87 cleansing points. Divine residue detected, shattered harmonic lyre of celestial dawn. Potential conversion value, 1/200 plus cleansing points. Valeria stared, her composure cracking for a moment. "You're cleaning now?" "It's my job," Leo said, continuing to vacuum. More points flowed in, 134, then 201. His total climbed toward another level-up threshold. Dangerous, but necessary. Enough games. Valerius brought her staff down hard against the earth. Dark energy erupted in a wave. It wasn't a focused attack but an area denial spell. The ground turned to grasping shadows, the air thickened with oppressive magic that sought to crush and suffocate. Leo's barrier skin flared, absorbing 40% of the magical assault. The cost was immediate, his health dropped to 0.7% as the skin drained vitality to fuel its defense. Pain lanced through every nerve ending. He stumbled back, his spring-like leg activating instinctively. It launched him 20 feet into the air, over the worst of the shadowy ground, but the stamina drain left him gasping as he landed awkwardly. Valerius was already casting again. This time, the magic took form, tendrils of pure darkness that snaked through the air, seeking to wrap around his mutations, to tear them free. Leo's gravity spine activated. He didn't have the health to project strong fields, but subtle manipulation might work. He focused on the space between himself and Valerius, warping gravity just enough to make the dark tendrils curve away, to make her next steps feel like wading through mud. It worked, for 3 seconds. Then the health drain from maintaining the field dropped him to 0.5%. Stars danced at the edge of his vision. Valerius pressed her advantage. "Your tricks are amusing but insufficient." She began an incantation, the words twisting the very light around them. Leo made a decision. He focused on the relic beneath the moss, the shattered harmonic lyre. His hair tendrils wrapped around it, pulling it free. It was beautiful even broken, silver and gold filigree twisted around crystal strings, all stained with divine blood and cosmic rage. Valerius's incantation faltered. "That's something you want?" Leo finished. His kaleidoscopic lenses showed her emotional stains flaring, recognition, desire, but also caution. She knew this relic, coveted it, but feared its cursed state. Perfect. He leveled up. The cleansing points from the cursed flora pushed him over the threshold. The familiar rush of energy flooded his system, followed immediately by the mutation roulette's chaotic spin. He felt it settle in his hands, his fingers burning with sudden transformation. When the light faded, his fingertips glowed with soft blue energy. They hummed with potential, attuned to magical frequencies. The system notification appeared. Mutation acquired, energy conduit fingers. Effect, can redirect weak to moderate magical energy along predetermined paths. Limitation, requires physical contact or proximity to magic source. Health cost, severe strain on magical redirection. Valerius completed her incantation. A spear of condensed darkness shot toward him, faster than thought, aimed not to kill but to impale and immobilize. Leo didn't dodge. Instead, he raised his newly mutated hands, fingers splayed. The energy conduits flared to life, creating a lattice of blue energy between them. The dark spear struck the lattice, and curved. Not deflected, but redirected along the paths Leo's fingers traced in the air. He gritted his teeth as the health cost hit him, 0.3% remaining. The redirected magic didn't attack Valerius. Instead, Leo aimed it at the cursed relic in his hair tendrils' grasp. The dark energy struck the shattered harmonic lyre. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the relic began to glow, first the sickly green of cursed objects, then shifting through the spectrum as divine and demonic energies warred within it. The crystal strings vibrated, producing a sound that wasn't sound but pure emotional resonance. Valerius took a step back, her confidence finally breaking. "What have you done?" "Cleaned it," Leo gasped, his health dipping to 0.2%. The world was graying at the edges. The relic's glow intensified, then collapsed inward. All the cursed energy, all the divine residue, all the emotional stains, they compressed into a single point of light before erupting outward in a harmless shower of sparkling dust. Where the relic had been, only purified metal remained, gleaming in the violet twilight. Valerius stared at the empty space where a powerful, dangerous artifact had just been rendered inert. Her emotional stains churned, ambition warring with fear, calculation with something almost like awe. You destroyed it," she whispered. "Cleaned it," Leo corrected, leaning against a tree for support. "Big difference." For a long moment, they stood in silence broken only by Leo's ragged breathing and the forest's cursed whispers. Valerius's grip on her staff tightened, then relaxed. "This changes nothing," she said, but the conviction had left her voice. "His Majesty will still want you. Your mutations are too dangerous to leave unchecked." "Tell him I'm just doing my job," Leo said. "And that there's plenty more cleaning to be done. Including in his throne room, from what I hear." Valerius's eyes narrowed. She looked from Leo to the purified metal, to his glowing fingers, to the black hole arm that now hung limp but still whispered of hunger. The calculations were visible in her posture, risk versus reward, what she could report, how much blame she might incur. Finally, she took a step back into the shadows. "This isn't over, Janitor. I will report everything to His Majesty. And next time. She didn't finish the threat. The shadows wrapped around her, and she was gone. Leo collapsed to his knees, his health stabilizing at 0.1%. The world swam, but he forced himself to stay conscious. His hair tendrils gathered the purified metal, still valuable, just not cursed. His system registered it as salvageable material worth 400 cleansing points if properly processed. He was about to start the slow, painful process of standing when his mop began to glow. Not the faint pulsing from before, but a steady, growing light that illuminated the cursed forest around him. The wooden handle grew warm against his back, and the whispers in his mind intensified, forming almost words this time. Throne, room. Divine, garbage. Feast. Leo turned his kaleidoscopic lenses toward the distant horizon, where the Demon King's domain lay. Through the layers of emotional stains, the fear of villages, the ambition of demons, the lingering rage of fallen heroes, he could almost see it. A concentration of cosmic trash so vast it made the Void Dragon's horde look like litter. And his mop was hungry. Leo stood at the edge of the cursed forest, the air still humming with residual magic from his confrontation with Lieutenant Valerius. His body felt like a collection of mismatched parts held together by sheer willpower. The black hole arm hung heavy at his side, occasionally twitching with its own sentient hunger, while his fingers tingled with the phantom energy of redirected spells. At 0.1% health, every breath was a conscious effort, a reminder that his mutations came with costs as unpredictable as their benefits. The sentient mop in his other hand glowed with a soft, persistent light, its whispers growing more insistent. Images flooded Leo's mind, not words, but sensations, mountains of broken artifacts, rivers of cursed residue, entire rooms filled with divine garbage waiting to be cleaned. The Demon King's domain. His kaleidoscopic lenses, still active from scanning Valerius's emotional stains, now painted the western horizon with streaks of crimson ambition and violet decay. That was where he needed to go. He began walking, each step measured. The spring-like leg, usually a source of enhanced mobility, now felt like a coiled trap, ready to launch him into danger if he lost concentration. He kept it grounded, using only its natural bounce to navigate the uneven terrain. His hair tendrils, practiced to precision in the alcove, swept ahead like delicate scouts, brushing against rocks and roots to map the path. They detected the first hazard before his eyes could register it, a patch of ground that looked solid but emitted faint wisps of toxic green vapor. Leo paused, his gravity spine humming softly. With careful focus, he projected a subtle gravitational field just above the toxic swamp, creating a temporary bridge of compressed air. He stepped across, feeling the strain in his spine as it drained another fraction of his already minimal health. On the other side, he knelt, his black hole arm extending almost instinctively. The swamp wasn't just mud, it was a concentration of demonic curses left by passing outposts, worth at least 200 potential cleansing points. The arm's event horizon swirled, vacuuming the toxic residue with a sound like distant thunder. Points flowed into his system, plus 215. His total climbed to 1,994. He resisted the urge to level up immediately. Not here, not while exposed. The memory of his vocal cords transforming into harmonic resonators still made his throat ache, and the energy conduit fingers had nearly killed him. But the points were tempting. He continued westward, following the emotional stains his lenses revealed, trails of fear from villages, arrogance from demon scouts, and beneath it all, the deep, ancient hunger of the domain itself. After hours of cautious travel, the landscape shifted. Rolling hills gave way to jagged cliffs, and the sky darkened with unnatural storm clouds that crackled with magenta lightning. A magical storm, the kind that shredded reality at the edges. Leo's hair tendrils recoiled as they detected the storm's approach, but his black hole arm trembled with excitement. Divine garbage wasn't just physical, it was atmospheric too. He found shelter under an overhang, watching as the storm descended. Bolts of magic struck the ground, leaving craters filled with crystallized energy residues. Each impact was worth points, but retrieving them meant exposure. Leo waited for a lull, then used his spring-like leg to launch himself toward the nearest crater. The leap was too powerful, his stamina drained sharply, leaving him gasping as he landed. His semi-permeable barrier skin activated automatically as stray magic bolts sizzled against it, absorbing 40% of the damage but draining 1% of his health per second. He cursed, deactivating it manually, but not before his health dropped to 0.05%. In the crater, he found shimmering blue crystals, rare residues from the storm's magic. His black hole arm vacuumed them, adding plus 180 points. Total, 2,174. The number glowed in his mind, irresistible. He needed to level up, but the mutation roulette was a gamble he couldn't afford to lose. Still, the points were there, and his body was failing. He made the decision. Level up triggered. The familiar, disorienting rush of energy surged through him, followed by the spinning wheel of the mutation roulette in his mind's eye. It landed on his ears. A sharp, piercing pain shot through his skull as his auditory canals reconfigured themselves into sonar receptors. Suddenly, the world exploded with sound, not just noise, but layered frequencies. He could hear the heartbeat of a beetle burrowing underground, the whisper of magic in distant rocks, and most importantly, the hidden dangers he'd missed. A nest of venomous spirit serpents coiled 50 feet to his left, and a dormant curse trap buried beneath the next hill. The mutation was useful, but it came with a cost. Every sound process drained his stamina, leaving him lightheaded. He focused, tuning out the excess noise, using the sonar to map a safe path through the storm's aftermath. As he moved, he looted more residues, plus 95 points here, plus 120 there. His total reached 2,389. The journey became a rhythm of cautious advancement and desperate cleaning. He avoided demon outposts by using his gravity spine to create minor gravitational distortions that misdirected patrols, though each use scraped another sliver from his health. At one outpost's edge, he found discarded armor plates infused with demonic energy, worth 300 potential points. His black hole arm consumed them silently, adding to his growing hoard. By the time the fortress appeared on the horizon, Leo's body was a tapestry of strain. His health hovered at 0.02%, maintained only by sheer stubbornness. The sonar ears buzzed with the fortress's ambient magic, a low, oppressive hum of power and decay. His kaleidoscopic lenses showed the emotional stains here were thick, woven into the very stones, pride, cruelty, and a deep, resonant loneliness that echoed the void dragons. He reached the outskirts as the sun dipped below the jagged peaks. The Demon King's fortress loomed, a monstrous structure of black stone and glowing runes, surrounded by moats of liquid shadow and fields of cursed flora. His sentient mop glowed so brightly it cast shadows, its whispers now a chorus of anticipation. But it was his black hole arm that reacted most strongly. It trembled, not with fatigue, but with a visceral, insatiable hunger. The arm's event horizon swirled faster, pulling at the very air, as if it could already taste the divine garbage within those walls. Leo crouched behind a rock, his breath shallow. The journey was over. The real work was about to begin. The Demon King's fortress loomed like a jagged mountain of obsidian and shadow, its spires piercing a sky permanently stained with crimson clouds. Leo stood at the edge of a service entrance, his janitorial uniform, a simple gray tunic with faded cleaning symbols, hanging loosely over his mutated form. His black hole arm trembled beneath the fabric, a low hum of anticipation vibrating through his bones. The sentient mop strapped to his back whispered in his mind, a chorus of hunger that echoed the pounding of his own heart. He adjusted the kaleidoscopic lenses over his eyes. The fortress walls shimmered with emotional stains, layers of fear, ambition, and cruelty baked into the stone by centuries of demonic rule. Purple streaks of terror from prisoners, crimson splatters of violent ambition from lieutenants, and sickly green pools of sadistic pleasure from torturers created a tapestry of misery that made his stomach churn. His harmonic resonator voice felt tight in his throat, ready to disrupt weak magical wards, while his energy conduit fingers tingled with residual energy from the journey. A demon guard with rusted armor and a bored expression stood by the service gate. Leo approached, keeping his head down, his gravity spine subtly adjusting his posture to appear smaller, less threatening. The guard barely glanced at him. "Cleaning crew," Leo mumbled, his voice raspy from the strain of the resonator. "Scheduled for hall maintenance." The guard grunted, waving him through without checking credentials. The fortress was vast, and cleaners were beneath notice, exactly as Leo had hoped. He slipped inside, the heavy iron door clanging shut behind him. The interior was a cathedral of waste. Halls stretched into darkness, lit by flickering torches that cast long shadows over piles of divine garbage. Broken demon weapons, shattered hell-forged swords, cracked infernal shields, and splintered bone spears, lay scattered like discarded toys. Cursed tapestries depicting ancient battles hung in tatters, their threads pulsing with malignant magic. Pools of divine bloodstains, shimmering with iridescent hues, stained the marble floors where celestial beings had once fallen. The air smelled of ozone, sulfur, and something sweetly rotten. Leo's black hole arm twitched violently. He unstrapped the sentient mop, its wooden handle glowing with an eager blue light. Easy now, he thought, though he knew the mop couldn't hear him, it only sensed trash. He began sweeping, starting with a pile of broken weapons near the entrance. As the mop touched a shattered hell-forged sword, the Trash-to-Treasure Transmutation System activated. The weapon dissolved into shimmering dust that flowed into Leo's being. A notification flashed in his mind, plus 45 cleansing points. He moved to a cursed tapestry, its threads writhing like serpents. The mop absorbed it, the curse dissolving with a hiss. Plus 60 cleansing points. A pool of celestial blood, still warm to the touch, vanished under the mop's bristles. Plus 80 cleansing points. He worked methodically, his sonar receptors scanning for hidden threats. The fortress echoed with distant shouts, clanking armor, and the low growl of infernal engines. His hair tendrils, prehensile and strong, reached out to gather debris from high ledges and narrow crevices, dropping it into the mop's path. Each sweep brought more points, plus 30 here, plus 55 there, plus 70 from a cluster of broken demonic amulets. His cleansing points climbed rapidly, 2,389. 2,500, 2,700. 3,000, the numbers blurred in his mind as he lost himself in the rhythm of cleaning. This was what he was made for, not fighting, not heroics, but this simple, satisfying act of purification. Yet every point brought him closer to another mutation, another unpredictable change to his body. He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the garbage. He turned a corner into a wider hall, this one lined with statues of demon lords, their stone eyes seeming to follow him. Here, the trash was denser. Piles of shattered artifacts, cracked orbs that once held souls, broken wands that channeled void magic, and splintered relics of forgotten gods, lay heaped against the walls. Leo's mop glowed brighter, its hunger becoming a physical pull. He swept faster, the points flooding in, plus 120, plus 95, plus 150. His total soared past 4,000. Then it happened. A surge of energy coursed through him as his cleansing points hit 4,500. The mutation roulette triggered, a spinning wheel of impossible choices flashing behind his eyes. He braced himself, his semi-permeable barrier skin activating instinctively, draining 1% of his already precarious health per second. The wheel stopped on torso. Pain exploded in his chest, not the sharp agony of injury but a deep, wrenching transformation. His ribs shifted, his spine realigned, and his entire torso became a nexus of warping energy. He fell to his knees, gasping, as space around him bent slightly. The air shimmered, light distorting as if seen through flawed glass. Statues appeared slightly closer, then farther away, their edges blurred. The floor beneath him seemed to ripple like water. He was a reality warping core, his very presence subtly altering the fabric of space in a small radius around him. He stayed still, waiting for the pain to subside. His health, already at 0.02%, dropped further from the barrier skin's drain and the mutation strain. He deactivated the barrier, but the damage was done, he was operating on fumes, every breath a struggle. He checked his status, cleansing points at 4,500, health critically low, new mutation active. The warping effect was minimal but constant, making the world around him feel unstable. He rose, using his spring-like leg to push himself up, though the enhanced leap drained more stamina. His sonar receptors picked up approaching footsteps, heavy, armored. Demons. They'd noticed the anomalies, the slight spatial distortions, or perhaps the disappearance of trash. He had to move. 3 demons rounded the corner, their armor black and polished, weapons gleaming. They were lower-tier guards, but alert. One pointed a clawed finger at Leo. "You! What are you doing?" Leo activated his gravity spine, focusing on a pile of broken artifacts across the hall. He projected a subtle gravitational field, pulling the debris into a clattering cascade that rolled toward the demons. They turned, distracted by the noise. In that moment, Leo swept up the nearest trash, a cluster of cursed demon bones, with his black hole arm. The arm hummed, vacuuming the bones with a soft whir. Plus 65 cleansing points. But the strain was immense. Using the black hole arm burned through his health reserves, he felt a sharp pang in his chest, his vision blurring at the edges. He staggered, catching himself against a wall. The demons, having dealt with the falling debris, turned back to him, their eyes narrowing. "He's not just a cleaner," one growled. "Look at his arm." Leo's black hole arm was visible beneath his sleeve, its dark, swirling surface pulsing with energy. He had no choice. He activated his harmonic resonator voice, aiming a low-frequency disruption at the demon's weapons. The sound strained his throat, a raw ache spreading through his neck, but it worked. Their swords vibrated, becoming momentarily unstable. They hesitated, confused. He used the opening to run, his spring-like leg propelling him down the hall in a burst of speed that drained his stamina further. His sonar receptors mapped the path ahead, detecting hidden alcoves and side passages. He ducked into a narrow corridor, his warping torso causing the walls to seem to bend around him, disorienting but useful. It might throw off pursuit. He needed more points, and he needed to loot. His mop whispered of a hidden vault, a place rich with shattered artifacts. Following its pull, he navigated deeper into the fortress, avoiding patrols with a combination of gravity spine distractions and sonar-guided stealth. He cleaned as he went, a pile of broken infernal machinery, plus 90 points, a stained altar cloth, plus 40 points, a scattering of demonic teeth, plus 25 points. His total climbed to 5,200. The vault was behind a false wall, its mechanism hidden by centuries of grime. Leo's kaleidoscopic lenses revealed the emotional stain of greed layered over the stone, a bright gold smear that marked the spot. He pressed his energy conduit fingers against it, redirecting a trickle of residual magic from the fortress wards into the lock. The strain cost him. He felt a spike of pain in his fingertips, his health dipping dangerously low, but the wall slid open with a groan. Inside, the vault was a treasure trove of broken divinity. Shattered artifacts lay in heaps, the remains of a celestial harp, its strings glowing with faint light, fragments of a god-forged hammer, still warm to the touch, pieces of a void-touched mirror, reflecting distorted images. Leo's mop trembled with ecstasy. He swept quickly, the points flooding in, plus 200, plus 180, plus 220. His cleansing points skyrocketed to 6,500. He looted as well, using his hair tendrils to gather the most valuable pieces, a large chunk of purified celestial metal, several intact gemstones from broken relics, and a data crystal similar to the one from the scouts, likely containing fortress schematics. He stuffed them into a makeshift bag from his uniform, his inventory growing heavier. But time was running out. Alarms began to sound in the distance, deep horn blasts that shook the fortress. His warping torso was causing noticeable distortions now. Demons were gathering, their shouts echoing through the halls. He had to reach the throne room, the mop's ultimate goal, the source of the greatest divine garbage. He ran, his mutations pushed to their limits. His gravity spine created false gravitational pulls to misdirect pursuers, his sonar receptors dodging patrols, his black hole arm vacuuming stray trash for last-minute points, plus 50 here, plus 30 there. His health was a flickering ember, his body screaming in protest, but he pushed on. The throne room doors were massive, carved from black stone and inlaid with glowing runes. They stood at the end of a grand hall, flanked by statues of demonic champions. Leo approached, his warping torso making the runes swim in his vision. He placed a hand on the door, his energy conduit fingers probing for weaknesses. The runes resisted, but his harmonic voice disrupted them just enough, a raspy note that made the magic waver. The doors creaked open, revealing the chamber beyond. Leo stepped inside, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The throne room was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. Divine garbage was everywhere, mountains of broken demonic armor, lakes of cursed ichor, forests of shattered magical staffs. At the far end, on a throne of bone and obsidian, sat the Demon King. He was immense, clad in armor that seemed to drink the light, his form radiating power that pressed against Leo's warping space. The Demon King's eyes, pools of molten crimson, opened slowly, as if awakening from a deep slumber. They focused on Leo, and a wave of palpable malice filled the room. The air grew heavy, the very reality straining under the weight of his attention. Leo stood frozen, his black hole arm trembling not with hunger now, but with primal fear, as the Demon King stirred from his throne, sensing the intrusion. The throne room stretched before Leo like a cosmic junkyard given architectural form. Pillars of obsidian and celestial marble rose to a vaulted ceiling lost in swirling shadows, but their grandeur was buried under millennia of conquest's detritus. Shattered war banners hung like tattered ghosts, their once vibrant sigils faded to spectral whispers. Piles of broken weapons, swords with snapped blades, spears with splintered shafts, axes with dulled edges, lay in heaps that reached halfway up the walls. Scattered among them were the remnants of artifacts, cracked crystal orbs leaking faint magical light, twisted metal frames that might have once been golems or constructs, and fragments of armor that still hummed with residual curses. The air itself felt heavy with the weight of forgotten battles, smelling of ozone, old blood, and something like cosmic dust. At the far end of the chamber, on a dais of polished black stone, sat the Demon King. He wasn't the towering monstrosity Leo had half expected, but a figure of contained power, tall and lean, clad in armor that seemed woven from solidified shadow and starlight. His throne, carved from what looked like a single massive meteorite, glowed with internal heat. But even that imposing seat was littered with debris, scrolls half unfurled and crumbling, jeweled cups overturned and leaking dark liquid, and what appeared to be the petrified skull of some long-extinct celestial beast propped against one armrest. The Demon King's eyes, pools of molten gold, fixed on Leo the moment he stepped through the archway. "Who?" The Demon King's voice echoed through the chamber, not loud but vibrating in Leo's bones. "Send a janitor to my throne room." Leo's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic rhythm that made his already critical health feel like a fraying thread. He could feel the strain of his mutations, the black hole arm a constant pull on his energy, the gravity spine a weight in his back, the reality warping core a subtle distortion in his perception of space. His health, already at a whisper-thin margin from the infiltration, seemed to pulse with every beat. But his sentient mop, clutched in his left hand, trembled with an almost ecstatic hunger. Through his kaleidoscopic lenses, the room wasn't just a mess, it was a tapestry of emotional stains. The broken weapons bled frustration and rage in crimson streaks. The shattered artifacts wept sorrow in shimmering blue. The very throne radiated arrogance in blinding gold, mixed with the faint, weary purple of loneliness. And over it all, the Demon King himself was a vortex of ambition so dark it drank the light around him. "I'm just here to clean," Leo said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. He didn't look at the Demon King directly, instead letting his eyes scan the room. Weak points glimmered in his vision, places where the emotional stains were thickest, where the divine garbage was most concentrated. A pile of cursed scrolls near the left wall. A cluster of broken demonic sigils embedded in the floor. The throne itself, its meteorite material humming with trapped cosmic energy. The Demon King rose slowly, shadows pooling around his feet. "You vacuumed my outposts. You looted my vaults. And now you stand in my sanctum with a mop." A smile touched his lips, cold and sharp. "This is either profound stupidity or a joke I've yet to comprehend." Leo didn't answer. He moved, not toward the Demon King, but toward the nearest pile of debris, a mound of shattered crystal orbs that glowed with residual divination magic. His black hole arm extended, the vortex at his palm swirling to life with a sound like tearing fabric. The orbs trembled, then shot toward him, shattering further as they were consumed. His system chimed in his mind, plus 150 cleansing points. The points flowed into him, a brief surge of energy that made his mutations hum in response. But the strain was immediate, a sharp pain lanced through his arm, and his health, displayed in his peripheral vision, dipped another fraction. The Demon King watched, his golden eyes narrowing. "You're not even trying to fight." "Fighting makes more mess," Leo muttered, already moving to the next target, a tapestry depicting some ancient demonic victory, now torn and stained with what looked like dried ichor. His energy conduit fingers twitched, redirecting a faint curse that leaked from the fabric harmlessly into the floor. The tapestry dissolved into motes of light as his black hole arm vacuumed it. Plus 85 cleansing points. Then the Demon King moved. He didn't stride, he simply appeared before Leo, a hand outstretched, claws of shadow forming at his fingertips. Leo didn't have time to think, his gravity spine activated instinctively. A field of distorted gravity erupted around him, bending the Demon King's strike just enough that it whistled past his ear and tore a gouge in the marble floor. The effort cost him, his health dropped again, the numbers blurring in his vision. He staggered back, his spring-like leg coiling and launching him across the room to a cluster of broken weapons. Interesting, the Demon King said, turning slowly. A cleaner with tricks. Leo kept cleaning. His black hole arm worked furiously, vacuuming up swords, spears, shattered shields. Each item gave points, plus 20, plus 35, plus 50, flooding his system. His reality warping core flared, bending space subtly so that when the Demon King launched a bolt of condensed shadow, it curved around Leo and struck a pillar instead, sending cracked spiderwebbing up the stone. But each use of his mutations was a tax on his dwindling health. He could feel it slipping away, like sand through his fingers. His barrier skin activated automatically as stray magical energy from the dissolving artifacts brushed against him, absorbing 40% of the damage but draining another 1% of his health per second. He had to shut it off quickly, leaving himself exposed. He reached 6,800 cleansing points. Then 7,200. The room was still vast, but he was making progress, clearing swathes of debris, revealing the polished floor beneath, reducing the emotional stains to faint echoes. The Demon King grew more aggressive, his attacks coming faster, waves of darkness that Leo dodged with his enhanced leaping, summon specters that his hair tendrils lashed out to disperse, blasts of infernal heat that his energy conduit fingers redirected at the cost of searing pain in his hands. Each evasion, each redirection, cost health. He was down to 0.005%, a number so low it felt abstract, a mathematical ghost of life. Then he hit 8,000 points. The system chimed, a clear, resonant note that cut through the chaos. Level up. The mutation roulette triggered. Leo felt it like a wave of ice and fire through his body. His sentient mop, still clutched in his hand, began to glow, not the gentle light from before, but a fierce, hungry white. The wood of the handle warped, becoming something smoother, darker. The mop head dissolved into a swirling point of absolute darkness, a singularity that drank the light around it. The whispers in his mind grew to a chorus, more. All of it. Leo didn't hesitate. He aimed the mop, now a singularity generator, at the heart of the room. Not at the Demon King, but at the throne itself and the mountain of debris around it. Just cleaning, he whispered, his voice hoarse. He activated it. The singularity expanded, not slowly, but in a violent burst. It wasn't a black hole like his arm, this was purer, hungrier. It consumed sound, light, matter. The throne, the meteorite dais, the piles of scrolls and artifacts and weapons, all of it was pulled toward that point of nothingness. The air screamed as it was torn away. The floor buckled, marble tiles ripping free. Leo's black hole arm joined in, the two vacuums working in tandem, creating a whirlwind of destruction that focused entirely on the room's contents. His kaleidoscopic lenses showed the emotional stains being ripped apart, shredded into nothing. His gravity spine projected a shield around him, bending the pull of the singularity just enough to keep him from being consumed, but the strain was unimaginable. His health plummeted, hitting 0.001%, then 0.0005%. He could feel his body breaking, his mutations straining at their limits. The Demon King stood unmoved at the edge of the chaos, shadows coiling around him protectively. He watched, his golden eyes wide with something that might have been shock or fury. "You dare," his voice was lost in the roar of the vacuum. Leo didn't hear the rest. He was too focused on looting. As items were pulled toward the singularity, he used his hair tendrils to snatch a few choice pieces, a gemstone that glowed with captured starlight, a data crystal that hummed with ancient knowledge, a chunk of purified celestial metal that felt warm to the touch. He stuffed them into his bag, his movements sluggish, his vision darkening at the edges. The throne room collapsed. Not with a crash, but with a sucking implosion as the singularity reached its peak and then winked out. The mop in Leo's hand returned to normal, though it now pulsed with a deep, satisfied glow. The chamber was gone, reduced to a crater of raw stone, open to the sky above where the ceiling had been. Dust and debris rained down. Leo lay in the rubble, his body racked with pain, every mutation aching. His health was at 0.0001%, a number so small he shouldn't be alive. But he was. Barely. He pushed himself up, coughing dust. His mutation stabilized slightly, the violent fluctuations calming to a low hum. The black hole arm settled into a gentle pull. The gravity spine stopped projecting fields. The reality-warping core's distortion faded. He was whole, but broken in ways that didn't show on the surface. From the edge of the crater, the Demon King stepped forward. He was untouched, not a scratch on his armor, not a hair out of place. But his throne room was gone, his treasures vacuumed, his sanctum reduced to a hole in the ground. His golden eyes burned with a cold, promised fury. "You have not defeated me, Janitor," he said, his voice quiet but carrying across the distance. "You have made an enemy of a king. I will find you. I will peel your mutations from your flesh. And I will make you clean the ashes of everything you cherish." Leo didn't reply. He just shouldered his bag of loot, the gemstone, the data crystal, the metal, and turned away, stumbling over the rubble. His system chimed once more, not with points or levels, but with a new message that scrolled across his mind: "Alert, cosmic garbage signatures detected in adjacent dimensions. Threat level, divine. Cleanup opportunity, infinite." He kept walking, leaving the crater behind, the Demon King's vow hanging in the air like a curse. Somewhere ahead, there was more to clean.